Pascal. You are now rocking with that dude Pascal. We be going wild, Haitian in the building, so original. Got the haters catching feelings. Get your hands up to the ceiling and keep them held high, cause St. Louis is ready. Forget about it, goodbye. Hold on, we just saying hi. Five somebody, rise up. Weekdays, catch us live, somebody. Let's go.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Pascal Show. Hope you guys all doing well out there. Hope this show finds you in good spirits, because another day above the dirt is always a blessing. Let's not forget that. We got some breaking news going on right now, guys. We got some breaking news that we have definitely got to get into. This is some crazy stuff. And honestly, there's a lot of information that's just flying out the gate. And I always say that we have to be very, very aware that things are subject to change. Okay, with the information that's out here right now. So do me a favor before we get into everything. This is just crazy, and there's stuff that's just going on like nuts. Okay, do me a favor before we get into everything, because this is obviously a very breaking, very live situation right now as we speak. Please do me a favor, hit that like button down below, crush it, do it, hit that reaction button if you're watching on other platforms. If you are watching on those other platforms like Facebook, X, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Rumble, Twitch, Kick, I'm on all of them. Make sure you're subscribed or following those platforms. Definitely follow me on TikTok for sure, because I'm putting out a lot of quick, fast videos over there as well on things that I'm not really covering here on the tubes, okay? Don't forget to subscribe here on the tubes, of course. Go over to my second channel here on YouTube called The Pascal Show Clips, and the third channel called Pascal Raw. Make sure you're subscribed to all three channels. Hit that notification bell so you know whenever I go live, whenever I upload, because right now it's just kind of random. At least for right now. If you can, that'd be greatly, greatly appreciated, okay? So, hit that join button down below on this channel. Become a member. Check out my Patreon. Become a member. Become a patron over there if you can. And, of course, check out PascalMerch.com. We got some really great stuff over there. PascalMerch.com. Go check it out. Okay, guys, we got to get straight into this. We got to get straight into the meat and potatoes. Some stuff is going on out here, and it's not looking good. There's a lot of speculation. There's a lot of rumors that are flying all over X, but this is some pretty crazy stuff nonetheless, so we're going to get straight into it. And again, this is all breaking news, so I'm learning this stuff as I go with you guys too. So there may be things that I'm not fully, that I might not be correct on, because I'm relying on the news and what they're giving us. And all that information is subject to change, just so you know. They've been saying that there's been multiple people hit, okay, on an Army base called Fort Stewart, okay, in Georgia. Now, there is a lot going on here. This is still an active situation. The assailant is still active. I repeat, the assailant is still active, okay? So we definitely need to look into this and talk about this. And this isn't the first time that we've had an active situation on an Army base, okay, or a military base. This is not the first time. We've covered this a copious amount of other times at various Army bases or military bases as well. So again, they're saying multiple people have been hit. But then there's rumors out here saying that 5 people have lost their lives, but I don't know if that's entirely 110% true. I'm just here to give you guys all the information that we find out here, okay? And hopefully there's going to be some live footage here, etc., so that we can get more down to what the hell is going on in Fort Stewart. Okay, let's get into this article real quick, all right? Active assailant confirmed. Schools and base on lockdown. Casualties have been confirmed now. Okay, so when I had this article up, it said multiple injuries. Now we have casualties confirmed. So they definitely updated this recently. Okay, so take a look at this. So Representative Buddy Carter released a statement on X, which I'm going to look up that as well, so we have it on X as well. I'm monitoring the situation at Fort Stewart. Please join me in prayers for the casualties, their families, and the brave law enforcement officers working to protect our community. So this is another update as of 12:06. Okay. And I think this is all just updates going backwards. Okay. Going backwards in time, just so you know. Appling County school system has been put on level 1 lockdown. We are closely monitoring the situation and remain in communication with local law enforcement. Okay. Then they say Governor Kemp has issued a statement on Facebook. As we remain in close contact with law enforcement on the ground, Marty, the girls, and I are saddened by today's tragedy at Fort Stewart. We are keeping the victims, their families, and all those who answered to the call to serve our hearts, is to serve in our hearts and prayers. And we ask that Georgians everywhere do the same. Casualties have been confirmed by Major Egan. Some victims have been taken to Memorial Hospital. Okay. So again, very interesting. Moving on, Liberty County schools have been placed on soft lockdown, including Button Gwinnett Elementary, Joseph Martin Elementary, and Nelson Golden Middle School. According to Major Egan, the active assailant has been confirmed at Fort Stewart. Casualties are still being assessed. Now, obviously, we're going backwards, but before they were saying that multiple people have been hit. Now they're saying that there has been confirmed casualties in this situation. Okay, so we're going to keep going back a little bit, going backwards in time a little bit. Okay, so we can get a little bit more up to date on what's going on. So, Lieutenant Colonel Tomko, Division PIO, said it occurred in the 2nd Brigade area located off Highway 144 near Sunbury Road. The brigade, which is located on the main Fort Stewart area, is currently locked down, as well as Wright Army Airfield, which is located about 3 miles from the SM2D bridge. That's a new one for me. Okay. So, of course, there's other parts of the airfield in the Fort Stewart area that have also issued a lockdown in that area as well. So, again, this is some very, 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 very interesting stuff. Of course, we're trying to figure out what the heck is going on, but at least right now, okay, at least right now, they say that there are casualties. Casualties have been confirmed, but of course, we're still trying to find out more information because, like I said, this article even says at least 4 injured, and now we're hearing casualties. So don't know what entirely is true and what is not right now. Okay. I mean, obviously, we did get confirmation over here, okay, that there has been a confirmation of casualties for sure. Okay. But we are still trying to find out how many people have lost their lives and how many people are actually injured. But we still know that this particular assailant is still active right now as we speak. So at least, well, we're going to read this for right now. Okay. This was 14. What was this, like about 20 minutes ago? They put up this article. Okay. Obviously it's subject to change. So I'm going to read this now just so you guys know about it. Okay. But of course, they're saying at least 4 injured in this active assailant incident, okay, at Georgia's Fort Stewart military base. And I want to know what the hell's actually going on here, right? We all want to know what's going on and why this assailant, part of the military? Did this person just walk onto the base and start opening fire? That's something I'd like to know as well, right? But obviously, we're going to have to find out what's going on. Okay.
We are getting more on the breaking news today. Fort Stewart Army Post in Georgia currently in an active shooter situation. It's taking place now. It's just been narrowed down. The 2nd Brigade combat area is the location of the active shooter, according to authorities there on post. The scene is very active, they tell us. No information on the suspect. Fox can confirm people are hurt in this, and what we're being told is casualties, and you know that could mean hurt or worse. So we'll call them casualties. We don't know the conditions of people. We don't know if anyone has been killed, but we know people are hurt. We are monitoring the situation. We'll bring you information as we can get it. And I do want to mention this. The Fort Stewart base commander and authorities there have told people to shut their windows, to lock their doors, get away from those openings, and to just stay on lockdown in place until otherwise told.
Dang. That's actually what? We don't need no Reba. We don't need no Reba. Okay. But that's crazy, right? Yeah, I agree, Corey. I mean, this is the craziness that's going on. Welcome to 2025, everybody. Dag nabbit. We are living in a wild, wild, wild time. Okay, it's the wild, wild west out here in these streets. Let's continue, though. All right. Fort Stewart has been placed on lockdown after the Georgia U.S. Army base's commander reported an active assailant and announced 4 people have been taken to the hospital so far. The lockdown began at 11:04 a.m. in areas of the base, including Wright and Evans Army Airfield and the Fort Stewart schools, with officials advising those on site to remain indoors and close and lock all windows and doors. Yeah, this is crazy. This is absolutely crazy. Okay, and of course, this is the post that they put on, Facebook. But of course, it says Fort Stewart is on lockdown. This is from Fort Stewart Hunter Army Airfield. So they're saying Fort Stewart is in lockdown status due to an active assailant incident in the 2nd Armored Brigade combat team area. The installation was locked down on at 11:04 a.m. and law enforcement is on the scene at the time. Casualties have been reported and the situation's ongoing. So this was allegedly, they screenshot this and then they put this onto this article. So now we're seeing that they're saying they're confirming casualties for sure. So that's without question. Casualties have definitely been reported. We have at least one person that has lost their life, but they say casualties. So it's got to be at least one, more than just one person. Okay. Follow our platforms for more information. So law enforcement, which is on the scene at the base, identified a suspect, but has not released a name, according to what these reports are saying. So Fort Stewart is the largest U.S. Army installation east of the Mississippi River, covering some 280,000 acres, which is 437 square miles, about 93% the size of New York City. Damn. In Southeast Georgia, and serving the home to the 3rd Infantry Division, as well as training area for a number of military units. That's a lot of ground. That's a lot of ground to cover, y'all. That's a whole lot of ground to cover. Now, hold on. I just want to, like I said, we're trying to get as much information as we can. And I want to look at this too. Let's take a look at this. And of course, I'm going to be going, I'm going to be doing everything I can to, cover certain things because, you never know. X can be, it can be very uncensored. Okay. And that's not what we want, especially on these platforms. We don't need to see the carnage if there's carnage to be seen. Okay. But take a look at this. It says soldiers run to shelter as active assailant situation at Fort Stewart unfolds. They're still on lockdown as a potential second assailant could be in the vicinity. What? Multiple casualties reported. Pray for our troops. What the heck is going on? What? So there could be a second one? There could be 2? Hold up. Wrong. So they're all running off for shelter. It's wrong. You know what's interesting about this? And yeah, I'm hearing that it was more than just 4 people, but obviously that's all. We'll find out more information about that. But what's interesting about this is that I'm going to put this on repeat for a second. If you really think about it, they're the this is the Army, and I get it. It's good to have police there, but they the Army, right? Can't they just pull out their stuff, hunt them down, and get it taken care of? Don't they have, like, where's JAG? You know what I mean? Where's the military police? You see what I'm saying? Now, I'm not sitting here saying that the police should not, be there, because this is very, very bad. But this is also the Army, though, too, right? Don't they have pew-pews like everywhere? So that I'm kind of curious about, like, what's the standard procedure on something like this? We talking about the Army, though. It's not like this guy's walking into, like a kindergarten or something like that. This is a school. I mean, this is an Army base. You know what I mean? Literally, they're all suited and booted. Literally. So it does make you wonder what's going on, right? Risville. Yeah, right? They're the Army. Can't they get their own weapons and take this mother lover down? That's what I'm thinking too, right? So I'm not, like I said, not trying to throw any shade. I'm just asking a question, right? And I think that's a question that we all want to know, right? That's a question that we all want to have answered here, because that is some crazy, crazy stuff. Hold on, we're going into more, okay? We still just are trying to get as much information out here as possible. We got another one here too. Fort Stewart officials confirm active assailant incident. Fort Stewart is in lockdown status due to an active assailant incident in the 2nd Armored Brigade Combat Team area. The installation was locked down at 11:04 a.m. and law enforcement is on the scene at the time. Let's take a look at this. So that's the MP. So there's the military police. Okay. There's the military police. So we see that. But it does make you wonder what the heck's going on here. Why is this happening? What's the motive? What's the reason behind this whole thing? Give me a second. Let's get into some live footage. Let's see here. Let's take a look. We're going to move back a little bit. Find out what the heck's going on here.
This hour, we appreciate that insight into what's happening. We have an opportunity kind of speaking to that quick response.
Real quick, I do want to say this really quick before we continue on. They're saying that 5, now they're saying, at least the reports are, because the rumor was saying that it was 5 on the internet, and now they are confirming 5 soldiers have been hit, okay? But they're saying multiple casualties, so it does, or they're saying casualties, sorry. They're saying casualties, so it does make you wonder, what are those casualties? Who are they? And of course, is there 2 assailants now? Has it morphed into 2 that are going on? Or could the second guy be somebody who's actually going down and trying to hunt this guy down? The actual assailant down. That could be it too, right? But I doubt it. But anything's possible. Let's take a listen. Let's see what's going on with CBS here.
On scene right now. So joining us live on CBS News 24/7, former FBI official Tim Gallagher. Okay, so we know that the shooter's apprehended. We know that 5 people are in various states of injury on their way to the hospital there. What does the FBI do now?
Sure. Well, thank you for having me on, Reid. Yeah, the FBI is going lights and sirens, obviously, to the Fort Stewart to assist military police and Army Criminal Investigative Command in the immediate.
Here's the other thing too. I'm reading the top of this here. It's saying, as far as the title says, it says the suspect is in custody now, which is obviously really good news. Okay, so suspect is in custody. That's good news. Let's continue.
Task right now is nailed down that there wasn't a second shooter, right? Be able to clear the base,
Yeah,
just to give the all clear, let people out, and that's not going to be easy because there's just so many people there. It's a military base, and there's going to, not only was there a bad guy with a gun today, but there's good guys with guns there as well. So there's going to be reports of individuals. I went through this, the Washington Navy Yard shooting. Well, I saw someone else with a gun. You need to pull the video, run that to ground, and make sure that it was someone we can identify as being a first responder or someone military personnel. As far as what the FBI is doing, the suspect's in custody, right? So they drilling down on who this individual is, what his motivations may be. Was this a criminal act? Was it personally motivated? Or is this an act of terrorism, right? And the FBI is going to treat this like an act of terrorism, and that they can prove that it is not. And so that's what is going on right now, as far as the FBI and working with their partners on the base there.
I want to get your thoughts. It goes without saying, you can't just walk on to a U.S. military base of any kind anywhere in the world without some sort of clearance. Does it strike you that this happens sometimes in our country on bases that are secure?
Unfortunately, it does not, right? So it's a secure facility. However, people come and go every day. They have bags, they have badges that get them in. They may not be subject to badge checks. And there's the insider threat. Approximately 1/3 of active shooter incidents involve someone who has a relationship with either the company, the school, the facility. So it could be someone who had lawful access to that facility, maybe had lawful access to a firearm, and decided to act out on this date, and with horrific consequences.
Horrific consequences, indeed. Okay, so just for our viewers who may be logging on or tuning in right now, 5 shot at that military base. It sounds like the shooter has been caught. While the focus always should be on the victims, I do have to ask about that shooter. Now, what does the FBI do once they get that shooter? What happens to that person as they drill down on the motive?
Yeah, they're going to be, obviously, he'll be taken into custody, try and get an interview of him individually right away, find out what he has to say. Sometimes they're looking to talk right away, and they want to get a statement from him. But FBI agents, FBI analysts are scraping the internet as we speak, going to get his electronic devices, getting court order search warrants, court authorized search warrants to search these electronics, look, what he's been searching online, who he's been corresponding with, see if there's anyone else who knew about what he was going to do, and go out and interview those people immediately as well. Interviewing his neighbors on the base, those in his unit, if it's someone who's active duty as well. A lot of people need to be interviewed. A lot of devices need to be scrubbed, but the FBI is putting the picture together as we speak.
Yeah, set your watch, because
boy.
My experience holds true, within the next couple of hours, you will see residences searched and computers brought out of homes, because like you say, they want to understand. People also trying to understand are at the White House right now. This is from Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt just now on social media.
Hold on, we're going to pause that right there. So now they're saying, that's interesting. Thank you so much for that. Sorry, guys. I'm looking up stuff as we're going live. I'm trying to get all the information as I can. And apparently the internet has already identified this dude. Okay. Which we got to talk about. Because, like I said, I get nervous about putting somebody's face out there that may not be the person. You see what I'm saying? But they're already, the internet is diabolical. Okay. They are so fast with this stuff. Again, last time we did it, it was right that it was the assailant, the guy who was walking into that NFL Blackstone building in New York City. Now they move fast, y'all. But that's interesting, though. Just so you know. Okay. So, and thank you for letting me know that. I didn't know that. Okay. That's why I was like, why can't they just run, get their stuff and go, brah, you know what I mean? And be done. Take the dude down. Right. But at the same time, maybe, obviously this is all done for good reason. So when you were stationed there, all my unit weapons were locked up, and that's good to know. That's good to know that the stuff is locked up. That's the reason why it's like they can't really do much. If it's locked up, they can't do much at all, right? So again, very, very interesting stuff. Yeah. Again, I'm contemplating if I should, you know what I mean, because it's unconfirmed. Okay. Because I don't want to put just some random person's name and face out there like that. Because that can get really sloppy. So I'm gonna wait a little bit before I just put the information out there, just to see if other places actually put his name out there and confirm who this person is, right? And then what's interesting is that we hear about casualties, but they're saying that it's just 5 people that were actually injured, that were actually hit. So we haven't heard anything about anybody losing their life, which is obviously really, really great news. But there's still people that were actually hit during this whole thing. So this is pretty crazy. Let me get some of these the members in super chats here really quick. So Moira, thank you so much for being a member for over 2 years. It's a long time. Has Pascal, wish you could do classes captions because you mean closed caption? Because I'm in class. I don't know how to do that with the lives. I don't know how to turn that on. That's one thing I've been looking up and haven't found the solution to that. So unfortunately, I can't right now. So Sailor, thank you so much for the love. I appreciate it. The Army has different sections. It has different sections. Okay. Thank you so much for that information. Joel, thank you so much for the love. Vet here. Weapons are locked up in units. Weapons are only allowed for use during training, and these soldiers in the video are trainees. So that's good to know. That's good to know. Thank you so much for all the information, because I was like, I want to know what's going on, right? I want to know what's going on, right? Yeah, I didn't think you could do closed captioning on a live. I didn't think you could do that. Like I said, I've been looking it up. I don't see it as an option, unfortunately, right? Maybe they will upgrade that stuff to another, over time. But let's continue on. All right. Like I said, the dude, I'm like, dang, you know what I mean? And then now it makes you wonder why the guy, right? Why he did what he did, right? Right now they're saying he's male, so we'll say that for right now. Okay. But geez, we are living in some crazy messed up times. Let's continue on here real quick. Okay. So Caroline Levitt, press secretary, okay, put out a tweet. Okay. The president has been briefed on this situation at Fort Stewart in Georgia. The White House is monitoring the situation.
Media saying the president has been briefed on the shooting. You know who else is monitoring the situation? The journalists at WTOC. Let's listen into their coverage as they await word outside the hospital where 5 people have been taken.
People being brought here, we will keep everybody updated. Now, we don't know the condition of any of the victims that Fort Stewart or the Army has confirmed. In a typical situation where somebody was injured, whether that be in a wreck, a shooting, or any type of manner, if we have a name, we can generally confirm that with the hospital that the person is being treated at, and they can confirm the victims, what state they're in, whether they've been injured critically, if they're in stable condition, all of those sorts of things. Because these are soldiers and this is military personnel, the hospital says that they don't believe they're going to be able to comment on that. So that information will have to come from the United States Army. So we are going to be pushing to get information on the status of these victims. I have been in contact with representatives from the military the entire time I've been out here. I haven't been able to get an answer yet, but that could just be because the situation is so fluid. Unfortunately, we're becoming increasingly familiar with these situations here in the Savannah area and our extended viewing area. But as we learned with the Oglethorpe Mall shooting or even the Savannah High shooting hoax several years ago, these situations are extremely fluid, and trying to get accurate information about who's involved and what condition they might be in is a little bit difficult in the moment. So as time moves on and we get a little bit more distance from that person being apprehended to now, we are expecting to learn more, and we will be pushing for those answers. Right now, the Army has confirmed that 5 people have been shot. We are expecting at least some of those victims to be here at Memorial Hospital, but be aware that those numbers can change. The victims' conditions can change. It really is a very fluid situation. So we're going to be monitoring that here on WTOC and bring you the very latest updates as we have them.
Shay making a really great point there. The number you saw at the bottom of your screen, that 5 injured just 15 minutes ago, was 4, right? As this information continues to update, we're going to be transparent with you and give you the latest that we can. But let's be mindful that it can continue to change as we're hearing what we are hearing from the folks at Fort Stewart.
Right. Like I was saying to you guys before, somebody was reporting that there was casualties, and so far they're not saying anything about a person losing their life, right? So again, or about any casualties. Of course, there are some injuries for sure, but they haven't said anything about anybody losing their life. But there's been rumors on the internet saying that, that all 5 people lost their lives. 5 people gone, right? There's no confirmation of that so far, right? But let's continue on, all right?
Let's go live now to Pentagon reporter Ellie Watson. You are right there where all of the messaging comes up from various bases from around the world. What are you hearing there, Ellie? He's having a hard time. Thank you so much. In breaking news situations, to bring our viewers up to speed, we know that that base is still on lockdown right now. What is the word there at the Pentagon?
Word is the latest update is the shooter was apprehended. There's no active threat to the community. According to Fort Stewart, shooter apprehended. 5 soldiers were shot and are being transported to a community hospital. We were told by officials that initial reports are just injured. The casualties are just 5 people injured, but that could change, as the local station was pointing out, as more reports come in. Fort Stewart, I want to give some context, is in eastern Georgia, one of the Army's bases in Georgia. Fort Stewart has about 10,000 people and is the home of the 3rd Infantry Division. This shooting, according to the Fort Stewart Public Affairs, was contained into the 2nd Armored Brigade Combat Team area, which officials tell me is not the full base, but just a section. That active shooter incident was there. The 5 soldiers shot, now taken to the hospital. We should get updates more about the suspect now in custody and the condition of those soldiers as the day goes along.
Well, definitely a tense time there on the base where so many families live as well. Tell us about what that combat team is specialized in, because likely, as we mentioned before, the training that they have to do their jobs literally had to be put in action there on their own base.
That's right. 2nd Armored Brigade Combat Team, we don't know. I shouldn't jump to conclusions about whether or not those 5 soldiers were part of the Armored Brigade Combat Team, but Fort Stewart is a large training base. So those soldiers would have been able to handle the pressure, handle the tense situation that happened today. But we don't know necessarily whether those 5 soldiers were part of that brigade combat team. Not yet.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Ellie Watson. We appreciate it. We know you have a busy day there ahead at the Pentagon. While we have you, sort of give us an idea of security at any U.S. military base on any given day. Once again, to the point that it's really hard to get onto one of these bases. So that draws a lot of questions.
There is heavy security getting on base. I know bases in the area, when we have to go to Joint Base Andrews or to over up near Arlington National Cemetery, there are several gates. You have to, days in advance, if you don't have a military ID, get your visitor information cleared. And so the fact that this incident was on base, far into the base, is of concern.
Of concern, indeed. And we don't know who the shooter is. We don't know if the shooter had any affiliation there on that base. But what we can surmise is the shooter was able to get, as you put, deep into the base. So what will be the Pentagon response? We just saw the response from the President of the United States via his press secretary, Caroline Leavitt. What happens now at the Pentagon where you're sitting?
The Army Criminal Investigative Division will work with local law enforcement to figure out how the suspect got on base, who the suspect is, provide details, and then also, first and foremost, update us on the condition of the soldiers. We haven't yet heard from Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, but I expect, like the White House, the Pentagon will confirm that the secretary has been briefed. We haven't gotten that yet, but that's kind of the next step in this process as the day goes along. 5
injured, shooter.
Hold on 1 second. Now, I just want to play this really quick. And of course, I want to get to some more of the reporting here. And this is just an audio. I'm just going to say this. Take this with a grain of salt. Okay. They're saying that the identity of the actual assailant was revealed. But I don't know if that's entirely true. But there's this audio. Let's just hear it really quick.
Can you run New York tag for me, please?
10-4, what's your badge again? I'm sorry.
949.
Go ahead with it.
Charles Henry Young Lincoln Nora Edward.
Hold on. I don't know if this is. Well, they're saying this is the license. It's what they're saying is that was the license plate of the actual assailant. Which is interesting. So I don't know. This is interesting. Hold on. Let's continue on. I just paused it because I was like, wait a second. Let me make sure this is actually correct. All right. But that was like that. What he was just reading off was the actual license plate of the alleged assailant.
Nora Edward.
Nine 49 comes back to the 2014 Honda Accord to Diogenes Diaz out of Elmont, New York, expires 11/21/26, 7429.
10-4, thank you.
10-4.
So yeah, I don't know. Like I said, take that with a grain of salt because okay, here's the reason why I was like, okay, I'm gonna pump the brakes on like showing this particular person's face, right? Is because some places are sharing a face and a name that have nothing to do with what we just heard on that scanner. Now, maybe there's 2 assailants and that's what's going on. I don't know. But what people are sharing right now like crazy, there's no confirmation on if the identity of these people are actually true. So that's the thing that I'm like, okay, we're going to just take it with a grain of salt for right now. But that's what's so weird. Names are getting dropped and it's like, nah, everyone's got it wrong. Like, unless there's 2 assailants. And here's the thing too. They're still doing everything they can to find out if there is more than just one assailant right now, right? They're clearing the area. They're clearing the base. But what sucks is that that base is massive. They'd have to do an extensive investigation into who else could possibly be if there is a second assailant and he's just hiding in plain sight within the Army base. I mean, it's going to take some time unless the person that they apprehended starts talking and is like, yeah, me and such did this, right? So again, people are throwing out a whole bunch of photos and a whole bunch of faces, but there's no confirmation of this actually being that person. You see what I'm saying? So that's what's so frustrating about this. Because everybody wants to be the first. And I get it. Everybody wants to be the first to break the news, so people keep coming back to their content and all that stuff. But at the same time, you gotta be careful. You never know. You could be putting the wrong face out there, and that could turn into a heap of problems. Let's continue though.
It's not seeing that much attention at this point, but there still is the military police. Megan, if we could zoom in, we have a military person just posted up with a gun on top of that car. We know the suspect, though, has been arrested, but I think this is all just a precaution at this point. They're just making sure the facility stays secure. We know that 5 people so far have been shot, as you guys have mentioned. We're told that these soldiers were treated on site, then moved to Wynn Army Community Hospital, potentially Memorial Hospital as well. We're not sure exactly their condition at this point, but what we do know so far, we saw a lot of ambulances coming in and out. There's no open threat to the community at this point, but this is garnering a lot of attention around the base. Pretty much every single street that we've been on so far has had police vehicles and emergency vehicles just speeding by us. But we're going to keep you posted as far as the base goes. We haven't seen that many people coming in or out at this point. I think that's just because the lockdown was just recently lifted, but we'll be sure to check in with you guys the more that we see coming out of the base, coming into the base. But for now, back to you guys.
All right, our first look there at the gate, of course, like we've been talking about, now that the victims, the 2 that we think are going to Memorial Hospital, are going to be driving, it's going to take them a while, just based on how long it took our crews, Madeline right there, to get out to that gate when she was out of here more than an hour ago.
Yeah, and it makes sense. She said no one's going in and out. This just happened. So the lockdown just was lifted about an hour ago. So, this is still fresh. We're not expecting much movement in and out right now. They were telling people to shelter in place, lock their windows, lock their doors while this was unfolding. And here's a map again showing exactly where this all happened. Again, 5 soldiers shot in this Fort Stewart lockdown. We are still working to confirm their conditions. We know 2 of those soldiers are now being transported as we speak to Memorial Hospital to be treated there in their trauma center. We don't know their conditions. That is a detail that we are working to figure out. Again, here's showing you the distance from Savannah, and this is how long it took our crews to get out there. It's not close to Savannah, so as you can imagine, it took us some time to get those initial photos and those initial videos into our newsroom.
Of course, and that area right there that has a bullseye on it right now, 2ABCT, those aren't just random letters. That's the 2nd Armored Brigade Combat Team area. That's where the folks at Fort Stewart are telling us this shooting happened in particular. When there are so many different areas of the base, that's the one. If you know folks in that 2nd Armored Brigade Combat Team, those are the folks most impacted by this, and that's the specific area Fort Stewart officials are telling us where this shooting happened. Again, that happened before 11 o'clock. They're telling us that law enforcement was dispatched to that area right there where you see on your screen at 10:56 a.m., and this is a live look at the gate that Madeline Bierster is at with our photographer Megan Leroy. You can see that soldier, that military police officer, stationed up, posted up on top of that vehicle, pointing his,
they ain't playing,
what I can assume to be a rifle of some sort, out at the road as folks are potentially approaching that area. And we know that lockdown has been lifted, so folks are now able to move around freely past the gates on the other side. You see that gate on the right side of your screen right there. That is the entryway at this portion of Fort Stewart where our crews are set up, and this is a live look at that right now.
Yeah, these are the initial images we're getting into our newsroom right here. First look images of Fort Stewart after this lockdown went into effect just before 11 o'clock this morning. So it's interesting to see, you know, what's going on there now and how many law enforcement are out right now. We can only see one car with its lights on, military police. You can see it says there on the side. He does have his rifle drawn, though. Not sure exactly if that's normal for Fort Stewart or if this is a special procedure that's happening right here. But these are the first images of Fort Stewart coming out after this lockdown went into effect.
And let's repeat why this is happening. If you're just joining us, 5 soldiers have been shot in an active shooter incident in that 2nd Armored Brigade combat team area of Fort Stewart, just beyond the gate you're looking at right now, one of the entry gates to the base. We are told that that suspect, as you see at the bottom of your screen, is in custody, and that allowed the lockdown to be lifted that was put in place. The lockdown lifted at about 12:10, so 50 minutes ago, and this still what you're seeing, what we're seeing with you out in front of one of the gates right now that, as you can see, is closed, with those 3 officers kind of in that area, including the one with his rifle drawn over his MP vehicle.
I'm going to skip ahead a little bit just to see if there's anything more beyond that. Hopefully they're going to have some sort of press conference here soon so we can kind of understand what the heck's going on here. Let me skip ahead a little bit.
Area journalists on the ground with WTOC pick up the coverage from right outside the hospital.
Out the victims that we do know about, especially the 2 that Shay, you learned are en route right now to Savannah, to Memorial Hospital. What are you learning now?
We are still waiting for those 2 victims to arrive here. We do know that it's going to be via ambulance, not helicopter, because of the weather situation. So that's just another added factor here in a situation that nobody wants to confront, nobody wants to have to deal with. But that is the unfortunate situation that we're seeing here today. So we know that there are at least 2 people en route from Fort Stewart. And keep in mind how long of a drive that is from Fort Stewart into the heart of Savannah to get to the hospital. Obviously, they're in an ambulance. They're going to be able to go faster, have sirens on, so people are going to be moving out of their way. But it is a longer travel time than if they had been arriving here via ambulance. So we are here at Memorial Hospital waiting outside of the ambulance bay where ambulance drop-offs occur. Now, I can tell you that we have also seen several Savannah Police Department officers pulling up to the emergency room over the last couple of minutes. I see at least 2 or 3 at the walk-in entrance, and then there's one lone officer's car over by the ambulance bay. We don't know if that is related to the soldiers coming in, but in these high-profile situations, that's not uncommon to have some kind of a police presence to assist and make sure that people's identities aren't revealed, things of that nature. So we are aware that it could be related, but we don't know 100% for sure if that is related. So again, we are expecting 2 soldiers to be transported here. The Army has confirmed that at least 5 people were shot, and so we don't know what the conditions are of those other 3 people. Wishful thinking says that they're able to get their injuries treated at Wynn Army Hospital, but we don't know for sure whether that's the case. The 2 people that are going to be coming here to Memorial, we can infer that their injuries are going to be on the more severe end because Memorial is the only level 1 trauma center in our area, and it's the only hospital that is going to be suitable to treat more severe or critical injuries. So we can infer that at least those 2 people are seriously or critically injured. We don't know exactly what their status is right now. If we had their names, which I can tell you we don't at this time, but if we had their names in a typical situation, we could give those names to the hospital and they could at least give us an update on what their condition is, tell us whether they're in stable condition, critical condition, serious condition, what the extent of their injuries are. But because these are soldiers that we're talking about, that information is going to have to come directly from the Army. I can tell you that I have been communicating with the Army since I've been down here on the ground, trying to get more information about the conditions of these soldiers and whether there have been any deaths. The word casualty has been said. Again, just to emphasize, casualty could mean a death, but it could also mean a serious injury. So I am in communication with those officials for the Army, and as soon as I have any information to share, I will. But just keep in mind that this is an extremely fluid situation, and as you can imagine, likely a very chaotic situation. Now that there's no ongoing threat to the public and that the people responsible for this has been apprehended, that gives way for people to start getting their ducks in a row and figuring out what is fact and what is not fact. And we're going to continue to bring you the facts here on WTOC, but keep in mind, because of the fluidity of the situation, that can change. As soon as anybody comes here to the hospital, we will be the first to let you know. But for now, I am going to send it back to the studio.
All right, Shay, thanks for that live
listening in
report.
to WTOC coverage, likely you heard me with my microphone on. I was asking my producer, are we hearing a helicopter there? Because I could have swore I heard one. That would be good news, because as we rewind the tape, we know that 2 of those soldiers who were shot, the most critically wounded, according to reports, were not able to fly by helicopter to that hospital. They have to, because of weather conditions, be taken by an ambulance. But hearing that overhead raises some questions here. So we're all holding our breath to hear the status of those 5 soldiers who were shot and injured there on their Army base in Georgia. Let's put that aside for a moment as we all hold a prayer for those soldiers, and let's talk about the suspect. Let's talk with somebody who knows how these investigations go down, former FBI official Tim Gallagher. Tim, first of all, just want to get your reaction to what you see outside that hospital. I've been at scenes like this. Does it strike you that that hospital seems quiet at this point?
Yes, thanks for having me on here, Reed. Yes, you want,
that is a good point. At first I was like, why would he ask a question like that? But he actually does have a point. Like, you'd think that it would just be crazy activity outside of that hospital, right? Because if it's 5 individuals, 5 soldiers that actually got shot at this situation, at this tragedy, you'd think that would be absolutely crazy, unless they all got taken to the Memorial Hospital because their injuries are that severe. That could be it too. But yeah, that's very, very interesting. Let's hear what you got to say here. I'm looking up to see if there's any more updates here. Just give me a second, guys.
First hour is absolutely critical to get the wounded treated, get them first level care. The good news story here is, as you heard Anna say before, when we're training people to how to react to an active shooter, we're like talking about that first aid, that stopped the bleed, and that, on a military base, people in that room would have been trained in that. So the initial triage that was handled on site, the initial aid that was given, none better, right? So that's the good news story. You would have liked to have seen them getting to the hospital quicker, but as I said, that they're receiving treatment along the way.
And that is good to know that training can come into play. But there's also the other story, and that is the investigation into who pulled the trigger and why they would do something like this. In recent mass shootings, even in the Midtown Manhattan mass shooting, very quickly we started to get a profile of that shooter and the allegations that he had mental illness. Because the big question is, when things like this happen, is why didn't somebody see warning signs before? What will happen at the FBI level, at the investigative level, to try to figure out if this person had any warning signs that perhaps were missed?
Right. So as you're mentioning, there's a command post that stood up right now, the FBI side by side with Army Criminal Investigative Command and the state police. One of the things the FBI is doing is going back into its holdings. What did the FBI know? What have people reported on in the past that has to do with this individual? What are some things that, may not be identified with his name that could be him, right? So they're going to go back and see what was out there and then develop those leads and interview people to figure out what exactly it was that, that may have pushed him over the edge. What was what took him from ideation to action, and trying to, get evidence as to who knew what and when, and how can they we have how they could put a criminal case together.
So from the vantage point of the FBI also, you saw some of those live images coming from our affiliate WTOC, and you saw the law enforcement officer with a long gun. We would think that this is a sniper, somebody who's trained as a sniper, still looking through the sights there. We're also hearing about securing that perimeter. We know that the threat has been eliminated. Some people are able in that community to go about their daily activities, but yet you see that long gun and that soldier there with his eyes literally through the sights. Do you think the perimeter is secure when you see a scene like that, or is that just keeping the perimeter secure?
Yeah, they're going to be on high alert. The Army,
Duh.
on the
They're absolutely going to be on high alert without a question. Okay, absolutely. Okay, you just had a situation just happen. You think that they are just going to go, let's going to, it is what it is. Let's continue. No, they're going to be absolutely super paranoid and on high alert for as long as they need to be until they feel comfortable to back off, right? To lay off, right? Lauren, thank you so much for the super sticker. I really do appreciate it. Thank you so very much. But again, like I said, of course it's going to be high alert. This happened on their own turf, right? They're not going to play. They have better things to do than to possibly have this happen again. And it shows that it also gives an opening for vulnerability, and they don't want that to happen. They don't want people thinking that this is a great place to to pounce on and try to bring more problems to. So of course they're going to be on high alert. This is just crazy. And somebody said something in the chat a little bit earlier, and I wanted to point it out because it does say a lot on what's going on with our world right now, with our country. Real talk, like we are living in some really crazy. We are living in some really, really crazy times for sure. Hold on. Sorry, guys. I just want to pull up a few things and see what's going on. Somebody was like, yeah, it's just so crazy. It seems like every single day we're having some sort of mass tragedy, which is basically what's going on right now. And what's even more insane about this is that there are ones that I've even missed because I'm in the middle of something, or I'm nowhere near, I'm not home, or, I'm nowhere near the office, nowhere near any of the, to be able to report anything to you guys. That's insane for me to even say, because the fact that it happens so damn often, these types of tragedies, that I can even say that with my own mouth right now is a reality that I never thought we'd ever be in, right? Man, I'm sorry, guys. I wasn't able to be there to report that casualty. Sorry, I wasn't able to report that casualty because, I would never leave this room in that case, right? I would not have a life outside of this room. It would just be reporting this stuff, right? It's just crazy, okay? Again, just crazy stuff. Laura, thank you so much for the super sticker, okay? And for the other super sticker, thank you so much. It's just insane, right? And again, yeah, I mean, I can't get all the topics true, and that's all the topic. But I'm talking about the fact that there's so many, and bam, you ain't wrong, right? It's just insane how often these tragedies happen that, like I said, you just don't have time. Right? You just don't have time to cover everything. That's insane. That's the world that we live in. That's how messed up and jacked up the world we live in is, right? There's so much tragedy and so much mayhem that I don't even have time to cover it all. That's insane. That's not a conversation we should be having right now, right? That's not something we should be saying right now. But unfortunately, it's the saga that continues all the time, right? The saga, it's like a broken record at this point. And at some point, something's got to get figured out here. Let's see what's going on over here at WJCL.
All of this unfolded. We're going to hope to hear from them. If any of you are watching and want to speak with us, please reach out to us, news@WJCL.com. With that, we want to check back in with WJCL 22 News' Lydia Blackstone. She is live outside Memorial Health in Savannah. Lydia, have you learned anything in past few minutes?
Yes, Brooke, we've learned a few extra details here that we know that none of those soldiers that went to Winn Army Community Hospital, they're not going to be coming by any type of helicopter just because of the weather conditions here. But we have confirmed that 2 are going to be arriving by ambulance. And that's, of course, to be treated here at Memorial Health because it is a level 1 trauma center. Meanwhile, Winn Army Community Hospital is level 4. So different response level here. They handle all sorts of gunshot wounds just being here in Savannah and the different crime that we see. But of course, they're prepared. They're inside this ER here. If a helicopter were to land, it would land right above me. But because of weather, they are not going to be bringing any soldiers in. And of course, we earlierly confirmed that this was an active shooter situation because I was talking to some of my contacts out there at Fort Stewart that I work with so regularly, reporting on military topics here in Southeast Georgia. It's a very tight-knit military community. Not only do we have Fort Stewart all the way out in Hinesville, here in this area, just a few blocks from where I'm standing, there's Hunter Army Airfield, where there are so many different families and soldiers that are listening into this, wanting to hear the latest details on these victims that, of course, are in this tragic and unfortunate situation that happened in an area where first responders all are. Those soldiers, they're our backbone. And of course, this type of incident brings such confusion, and we want to help clarify as much as we can. So right now, we do know that 2 are going to be arriving by ambulance shortly here. It's about a 40-minute drive from Hinesville to Savannah. So we're just awaiting their arrival here so they can be treated as soon as possible. Brooke, back to you.
Now, this is obviously about 37 minutes ago, right? So I'm sure that they've already been showing up, you know, the ambulances showing up and all that. But still, this is all really, 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 really bad. Okay, this is absolutely just sad. I'm gonna pull up a little, you know, move up a little bit more because obviously we're a little bit behind. But like I said, I wanted to give you guys as much coverage on this as best as I can. I'm still waiting to see if there's any updates outside of that. I'm refreshing. I feel like we're back at trial. We're back at the Diddy trial all over again. But you know, I'm doing as much refresh as I can to see if there's any more information here. Please do me a favor though, okay? While we continue, hit that like button down below, okay? That would really, really help the show. It helps us grow. It helps us get stronger. It helps us get out there more. All right. I would love to get it to, man, I would love to get to 1K. That would be fire. Can you just hit that like button? Can we just get to 1K? That would be really, really appreciated. We are halfway there already. So if half of you guys go and just hit the like button right now, it'll get us to literally past 1K. And of course, don't forget to subscribe, okay? Hit that subscribe button, subscribe. Okay, we cover a lot of things on this show, everything from politics, true crime, even pop culture and everything in between. So definitely, yes, please subscribe, please and thank you. All right, we got a lot of news coming out, so be ready. It's coming.
The 2nd Armored Brigade Combat Team area. We know that several of them are being treated at Winn Army Community Hospital, and we know that several of them are now heading to Savannah to go to Memorial Health to be further treated at that level 1 trauma center. But here right now, outside of the main gate of Fort Stewart, things are fairly normal. When I got here about 90 minutes ago, traffic was incredibly backed up with people trying to get onto the base. At that point, maybe about 20 minutes after that, police started shutting down traffic onto the base and actually installed traffic cones here to the front of the base to prevent anyone from coming in and out. That lasted for a good half hour before those officers left the area and were inviting folks back onto the base. Now, we know, I want to step out of the way so my photographer can give you a better look onto the base. We know that in these situations, after a security situation on the base, we know that security is going to be tight. And I apologize, it's tough with these cars driving to get a clear shot of that main gate. But we do know that extra security precautions are underway to keep the soldiers and their families safe living here on Fort Stewart. We know that this will continue to be a breaking situation. We will continue to learn more later in the day. I've been reaching out to Fort Stewart officials to try and get more information from them. We have not yet heard back, but we do know, again, from Fort Stewart officials, I want to recap, 5 soldiers shot in an active shooter incident at the 2nd Armored Brigade Combat Team area. Brooke, we will continue to stay out here and bring you the latest when we have it.
that live report, and we are actually now hearing from the White House press secretary Carolyn Leavitt. She just released a statement she posted on X, quote, "The president has been briefed on the shooting at Fort Stewart in Georgia. The White House is monitoring the situation." It looks like that is actually the statement that you're seeing on your screen there. That is from the Fort Stewart Hunter Army Airfield.
Mag Station 1, mutual aid request for a gunshot wound on Fort Stewart. It'll be building 8422nd Brigade, 8422nd Brigade, gunshot wound, mutual aid.
Now, again, Fort Stewart is saying that they did apprehend the shooter at 11:35 this morning. Officers were originally dispatched for a possible shooting in the 2nd Armored Brigade Combat Complex at 10:56 a.m. So that's about 40 minutes after that initial dispatch that they were able to apprehend the suspected shooter. We are working to learn who that shooter is. We're, of course, going to be monitoring any arrest reports to see if anyone has been arrested with charges that kind of match up with what happened here at Fort Stewart today. Working to learn whether the suspected shooter was also a soldier himself. Again, this happened at the 2nd Armored Brigade Combat Team Complex, so inside of Fort Stewart, but the whole base was locked down at 11:04 this morning. But at this point, 2nd Armored Brigade Combat Team Complex is still locked down while the main gates have been opened. We want to show you
Pulling up more information, ABC News.
Georgia is on lockdown because of an active shooter. Army officials say there are casualties and the incident's ongoing. It happened around 11 a.m., they say, and law enforcement is on the scene. Now, the governor says he is saddened by the news, but is in close contact with law enforcement. ABC News senior Pentagon reporter Louis Martinez and ABC News contributor, former NYPD Chief of Detectives Robert Boyce, are here with more on this. Louis, what's the latest?
Diane, the latest is that we are now reporting that a person is in custody involved in this active shooter situation at Fort Stewart in Georgia, which is just outside of Savannah, Georgia. We are hearing that there are multiple wounded, according to a U.S. official, who again also provides the same information that this person who is believed to be the shooter is in custody. We know that around 11:04 this morning, there were initial reports that something had happened at the base, and then we got confirmation from Fort Stewart. They posted on their Facebook page essentially that there was a lockdown in effect, that there was an active shooter situation at a facility associated with the 2nd Armored Brigade Combat Team. That is one of the brigades that make up the 3rd Infantry Division, which is housed at Fort Stewart. They acknowledged in that release that there were casualties as a result and that law enforcement was on the scene. We can now report that a person is in custody believed to be the shooter.
Okay. We got a few other things. Hold on, guys. We got a few other things that I want to pull up here. Just a report. Dang it. A report from ABC News. Just some, a few updates here and there. Because like I said, right now, everything is still developing. Everything is still breaking, as we keep going. Right. So we're still getting as much information as we can. So 5 soldiers injured. All right. So we know that so far. Okay. So we already know about the, 5 soldiers that were hit. Okay. By a fellow service member in an active situation. All right. But we already know that person has been taken into custody. They said the suspect, here it is, a male soldier, according to a U.S. official, was apprehended at 11:35 a.m. So active situation happened fairly quickly or ended fairly quickly. Okay. But like I said, 10:56 a.m. to 11:35 a.m. and you are running around with a weapon, heavy artillery like that, you could do a lot of damage in just five seconds. Right. And so the fact that he was out there for well over 40 minutes that's a lot of time, y'all. That's a lot of time to do a lot of damage. But they say that there is no active threat to the community, as they're saying right now, no active threat to the community. This is a male soldier. That's the other part that they've told us. No fatalities were reported. So whatever we heard before from, I think it was here, talking about casualties, okay? is not correct. I guess they heard something and then they, casualties are still being assessed, but that was at that time. At that time, see, this is coming from Representative Buddy Carter. He released that statement basically saying, please join me in prayers for the casualties, their families, and the brave law enforcement officers working to protect our community, which is insane, right? We heard casualties, so of course, obviously, we're all thinking casualties. We have some people who suffer. We've suffered some losses, right? But that's not the case here. They're saying that no fatalities have been reported so far. Their conditions were not immediately clear, but 2 of the victims were actually rushed to Memorial Health University Medical Center in Savannah, which is a level 1 trauma center. So those 2 people got hit pretty bad. Long story short, they're in bad shape. Okay. And I'm hoping that they come through and they survive, right? That's fingers crossed, right? All fingers and toes crossed. So we already know about Fort Stewart, but it's 40 miles southwest of Savannah, Georgia. So Governor Brian Kemp said on social media, we're keeping the victims, their families, and all those who answered to the call to serve in our hearts and prayers. And of course, President Trump has been briefed on this situation, according to White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt. And this is so far what we know. Of course, we're trying to find out if there's anything else. Like I said, I'm scouring the internet to see if there's any more information other than what we have been given so far. Because right now we're looking at all these reports, right? And I feel bad because I'm doing dirty. I'm doing this reporter dirty by constantly putting her face pausing on strange faces. But they keep saying the same thing over and over again, right? Because they're waiting for more information, and the information that they have, there's not a whole lot, right? Which is really, really frustrating. So again, what we now know is that there are no casualties, which all right. There are no casualties, or there are no people have not lost their lives. Okay. Thank you, Linda. Okay. So again, that person, the governor that or that representative that reported that was correct, I guess, right? I always look at casualties like someone passing. You see what I'm saying? The unaliving of somebody, not an injury. Injury is someone got injured, right? But I see what you're saying. All right. I take back what I said. Okay. All right. But again, moving on. There have been 5 people have been injured. And how I read it was people were losing their lives. But it is what it is. My bad. I stand corrected. Thank you so much. But we now know that the assailant is actually male. So we do have a male suspect in custody. Who could that be? We do not know. Okay. And at the end of the day, I get a little nervous. Okay. I get a little nervous because when it comes to something like this, especially now that it happened on an Army base, and this has to do with our best, right? Our men and women who are sacrificing their lives for this country. I get a little nervous about this turning into something else. Like, for example, and of course, it all depends on how Trump's going to respond to it too. Because remember when the plane and the helicopter collided, right? And Trump, his response was, let's just blame, like he just blamed it on DEI. And he said it's common sense, right? So I get a little nervous about this being like, we're just going through this all over again. You know what I mean? This is the reason why you shouldn't give anybody any DEIs or, you know what I mean? So I'm just curious as to how and who this person is, who the male is, and how the Trump administration is going to react to this situation. I'm not dogging Trump, okay? We are already doing enough of that with the Epstein stuff, okay? He's in trouble for the Epstein stuff, in my personal opinion, okay? We are all still side-eyeing the hell out of him for that. But all I'm saying is that other side, I'm just kind of curious as to what's going to happen, right? How he's going to respond to this when this assailant is actually, okay, I'm wondering if this person, when they come out with the information, it's going to be interesting how how Trump reacts, right? So we'll see what happens here. But again, oh boy, this is all very, 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 very bad. So let me continue on here. Let's play a little bit more. And again, like I said, this should never happen on an Army base at all. Period. It should never be on any military base, period, whatsoever, these kinds of tragedies. But they do happen. They do happen. I haven't reported one in a while, but at least within the last 2 years, there was another one. You know what I mean? So this is just crazy. But let's continue.
Might be needed. So you are seeing a lot of law enforcement personnel kind of coming together, working to help those at Fort Stewart get answers in response to this incident. And we do want to note we have all of the information that we've learned about this incident on our website, WJCL.com. The nation right now is actually watching this all unfold. CNN, ABC, both have updated their websites with the latest information. Right now, you are looking at CNN's website. But of course, it's not only them, but WJCL 22 News. We also have gone into a homepage takeover on our website, providing you with the latest information. Again, we have crews at Fort Stewart right now. We also have a crew at the hospital where ambulances are actively arriving with victims from today's shooting. We are told that 3 soldiers have been taken to Savannah. Of course, it's a long drive from Fort Stewart to the Savannah Memorial Health Hospital, so they're arriving as we speak. We want to give you a recap of everything we know, the timeline for this entire.
Hold on. Now they're saying 3. Now they're saying 3 have been sent to Memorial Hospital. So, man, that's not good, y'all. That's not good.
Incident. If you are just joining us, here is what we know. Fort Stewart says law enforcement was dispatched for a possible shooting in the 2nd Armored Brigade Combat Team Complex at 10:56 a.m. The installation was locked down at 11:04 a.m. The shooter was apprehended at 11:35 a.m., just half an hour, really 40 minutes after officers were initially dispatched. Fort Stewart lifted the lockdown of the main containment area at 12:10 p.m. So our Andy Cole, he has been seeing a lot of cars now going in and out of the gates at Fort Stewart. 2nd Armored Brigade Combat Team Complex is still locked down as far as we know at this time. We do want to quickly show you a map of where the 2nd Armored Brigade Combat Team Complex is located in terms of the Army base. It's about 3 miles away from the 2nd Brigade on Sunbury Road, so 3 miles. So you kind of have to go into Fort Stewart and go quite a while before you reach this area. Again, we still don't know much about the suspected shooter at this time, whether they were a soldier, whether they were someone visiting, whether they were a family member. Of course, us as well as law enforcement are working to get those answers as we speak. Again, we want to take you back. It might sound like we're repeating ourselves a lot, but we're doing that for anyone who is just now tuning in, working to get information regarding what happened at Fort Stewart. Here's a statement from Governor Brian Kemp. You can see he said, quote, "As you remain in close contact with law enforcement on the ground, Marty, the girls, and I are saddened by today's tragedy at Fort Stewart. We're keeping the victims, their families, and all of those who answer the call to serve in our hearts and prayers. And we ask that Georgians everywhere do the same." Now, I had mentioned earlier in our coverage that people actually from inside, from on the ground at Fort Stewart, had actually been posting some videos from when the lockdown first occurred. I myself saw a video of soldiers kind of running into buildings, working to get secure, and then they were sitting in those buildings, working to get answers, all of them not really sure what exactly was unfolding at that time or how long they were going to be in lockdown for. Of course, no one started their day this morning thinking something like this would ever happen. This is something that is gaining national attention. We've mentioned to you A lot of national outlets are covering this as we speak. All CNN, ABC, just a few of them. We've actually been in constant communication with ABC News, telling them what we know. They've been telling us what they know. Of course, they have been in contact with U.S. officials. Okay, we just got an update right here. According to a U.S. official, the shooter involved in today's incident at Fort Stewart was a male soldier. We're told at this time there are no fatalities reported. The 5 wounded soldiers are currently receiving medical care. That is an update we just got from a U.S. official, so a source. They are saying that the suspected shooter was a male soldier.
So a male soldier, no fatalities. We'll use that word. Okay. No fatalities, just injuries so far. But 3 of the 5 that have been hurt have been sent to the Memorial Hospital, which is a little bit of a ways from Fort Stewart. Why? Because they are more equipped and more prepared for. That is a level 1 trauma hospital. So they're more equipped and more prepared for those types of situations, which makes no sense if you really think about it. Because why would you have your level 1 hospital that far away from Fort Stewart? You see what I'm saying? Wouldn't you want to have a level 1 like right nearby, right? Just a thought, but nonetheless, they're moving 3 now, not just 2, 3 individuals over to the Memorial Hospital right now as we speak. Okay. Or I'm sure they're already there. Okay. So still, no matter what, I just wish, I just wish that level 1 trauma abilities were, available at that specific nearby hospital. But, it is what it is, let's continue.
Kind of talking about on air, we weren't sure who the suspect was, whether they were a soldier or a family member or someone visiting. So you just heard it there. This was a soldier who is the suspected shooter. I'm sure
who is
investigators
this guy?
Are probably interviewing them right now as we speak, working to get answers as to why they opened fire at the 2nd Armored Brigade Combat Team Complex. We're hearing that 5 soldiers have been injured as a result of this incident. WJCL 22 News' Lydia Blackstone, she's actually at Memorial Health in Savannah. That's where a few of these soldiers are now being transported. They were initially being treated at Wynn Army Community Hospital, but we want to check in now with WJCL 22 News' Lydia Blackstone. And Lydia, you actually already saw a U.S. Army ambulance arrive at the hospital there.
Yes, Brooke, we have one of those Army ambulances. We just saw a central EMS. That could just be somebody coming to the hospital right now. We don't know if that is another soldier that's arriving now for some treatment, but we do know that we see one Army clearly labeled, so we know that that's a soldier in there that's receiving some treatment. And if you look off to the left, Lindbergh's going to pan this way so he can show you these law enforcement. This is Savannah Police Department, which is used to shootings in this area. But of course, this is a very different one because of not only the amount, but where it's coming from. An Army base about an hour away. They're being taken here to Memorial Health because this is the place that deals with severe injuries, trauma. So what our hope is when we saw that soldier wheeled in there, that they are getting the life-saving care that they need if this is a critical injury. We don't know the level or extent to their injuries as we speak, but we do know that they are going to be treated here at Memorial Health in that ER right there. So the prayer is and the hope is for the families that are praying and hoping that they're going to be all right, that because they got here, to all those medical professionals that are equipped to deal with whatever injuries they have, that they will be all right. That is the hope, of course. But we're here reporting all the details as they come in, confirmed. Like Andy was saying earlier, it's so important that the information that we push out to you, the public, the families that live on Fort Stewart, of course, our hearts go out to you. And of course, in kindness and what we do, we want to give you the most accurate information here. So we know right now that one soldier has arrived. We are awaiting others to come. They cannot come by air because of the weather, so the helicopter cannot land. That, of course, would be quicker because it's a 1-hour drive from Fort Stewart to Midtown Savannah. So we'll show you as more of those soldiers come in to get their care. We'll be updating you as live on the scene as we can. Send it back to you for now, Brooke.
Lydia, thank you so much for that live report. And I do want to mention it wasn't just Fort Stewart that was on lockdown as a result of this active shooter. Liberty County Schools actually put several schools on lockdown as a result of this incident. And it's actually their first day of school. So this is how 3 schools are starting their school year. Now, this is a soft lockdown. The Liberty County School District said, quote, in response to the active shooter incident on Fort Stewart, the following Liberty County schools have been placed on a soft lockdown out of an abundance of caution. That's Button Gwinnett Elementary, Joseph Martin Elementary, Snelson Golden Middle School. They said they're continuing to work closely with law enforcement to ensure the safety of our students and staff. They said they would provide updates as more information becomes available. I have been refreshing their social media pages. I haven't yet seen an update of them announcing that the lockdown has been lifted. We want to go now to a statement from White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt. She said the president has been briefed on the shooting at Fort Stewart in Georgia and that the White House is monitoring the situation. We have several more statements that I want to bring you here. Representative Rick Allen, he tweeted, quote, Robin and I join the governor and all Georgians in praying for the victims, their loved ones, and all of the brave men and women stationed at Fort Stewart. We are grateful for the law enforcement officers and first responders on the ground who have responded to this tragedy swiftly. And now we want to go to a statement from Georgia Attorney General Chris Carr. He said, quote, as we continue to monitor the situation out of Fort Stewart, we ask that all Georgians join us in praying for the victims and our entire military community. Now, I want to go back and give you a full recap of what.
Which we already know. So we're going to go here. I'm just seeing if there's anything else. Because obviously, you know, of course, this is something that they posted a while back. Hold on. Actually, I'm going to go. Hold on. Check something here too. Yeah, I mean, it's crazy because there's. Well, now they're saying, okay, so this is some updates, at least for Fort Stewart Hunter Field. They're saying Hunter Army Airfield, they're saying it is now all clear. Okay. Just going through some of these things here. This is about an hour ago. So they're saying 5 soldiers, of course, have been hit. All right. Today in an active assailant incident. We already know where. All soldiers were treated on site and then moved to Wynn Army Community Hospital for further treatment. There is no active threat to the community. Law enforcement was dispatched for a possible tragedy in the second ABCT complex at 10:56 a.m. The actual assailant was apprehended at 11:35 a.m. The installation was locked down at 11:04 a.m. The Fort Stewart lifted the lockdown of the main cantonment area at 12:10 p.m. The second ABCT complex was still or is still locked down. Now, of course, this is a reporting as of about an hour ago. Emergency medical personnel were dispatched to treat the wounded soldiers at 11:09 a.m. The incident remains under investigation and no additional information will be released until the investigation is complete. 30. That's all they said, 30. So again, but now they're saying, okay, Evans, the Fort Worth, Wright Army Airfield and Evans Army Airfield is now clear. And that's as of 5 minutes ago. So we still are kind of waiting for any type of information to give us some idea of like who the person is, who's this assailant, right? I mean, let's see here too. So Trump was apparently rushed into a meeting after this whole information, after the information about this assailant and this tragedy happened, right? So the assailant who opened fire at the Fort Stewart Army base in southwest Georgia this morning, striking at least 5 soldiers, has been apprehended after the base was urgently locked down. He struck the second armored, well, we already said the second ABCT area of the base, located about 40 miles southwest of Savannah, which includes the Wright and Evans Army Airfield. So we already know that area now is absolutely clear. That's what they just said. The area is clear. Everybody can go back. I guess all those soldiers and all those soon-to-be soldiers, those that are in training, et cetera, can all go back to the regularly scheduled program now. They can go back to what they were doing, right? Everything's safe. Lockdown has been lifted. All is clear. Footage from the incident circulating on social media showed a number of soldiers seeking shelter as the active monster warning or the active assailant warning was being issued. The assailant's identity has not been released, which doesn't make any sense. Usually they say this stuff by now. They're like, oh, here he is. Remember what happened in New York? Homeboy walked in, the assailant walked into the room, walked into the building of Blackstone and of the NFL. He went on to the 33rd floor, taking his own, doing the unthinkable to himself and all that stuff. Remember all that stuff? Within the show, which we were on for maybe 3 hours. Within the show, they had already had his identity out there. And are they doing this because are they giving favoritism to him because he's a soldier? Are they pumping the brakes on him because he's a soldier? You see what I'm saying? So that's very interesting. Yeah, Grammy. Yeah, Grammy, you ain't wrong. This involves the military, and they're very tight-lipped. That could very well be right? Because it just doesn't make any sense that this soldier. You'd think that they would already have this information out here by now. His whole face would be plastered all over front page news by now. But they're not showing his face. And I'm wondering, or they're not even giving his identity yet, which is weird, right? Angel in disguise just said, God only knows, Pascal. I'm trying to stay sane through all that's happening, keeping my sanity and live as long as the world allows me. Yeah, I mean, it just seems a little bit weird, right? You know what I'm saying? Doesn't it seem a little bit weird? And yeah, we're all trying to keep our we're all trying to keep our sanity, okay? Especially with all this virtual insanity, right? There's all this craziness that's going on, but it just doesn't make any sense. Because like I said, that assailant's face and name plastered all over the internet. Front page news. So it's weird that they're kind of holding off on this information. Are they doing it because they don't want people to not trust the army, the armed forces? I don't know. Like I said, it just seems a little bit odd. Okay, it does, respectfully. Okay, but of course, this identity, the identity of this assailant's name, has not been revealed, which is insane. President Trump has been briefed on the incident, and the White House is monitoring the situation. Well, there's not much to monitor anymore. I mean, what's done is done, right? He has been caught. He has been apprehended. Now they are to just, lay down the law on this mother lover, right? But anyway, Fort Stewart is the largest army post east of the Mississippi River. It's home to thousands of soldiers to the Army's 3rd Infantry Division and family members. So, no fatalities as far as as far as they know so far. All fingers crossed that these individuals survive. Let's be real, okay? Let's hope for that. No one was unalived when he opened fire at Fort Stewart this morning. The U.S. official confirmed to ABC News that no fatalities were reported in the attack. The conditions of the soldiers and the circumstances of this tragedy weren't immediately clear, nor was the identity of this actual assailant. The injured are treated and then moved to Wynn Army Community Hospital. And of course, we already know that these victims are now being moved or they're now being rushed. So they're saying at least 2, but we heard in the reports just recently at least three victims have been rushed to the Memorial Health University Medical Center nearby Savannah. According to the news outlet, the hospital is a level 1 trauma center. So again, we gonna see what happens here. Again, this is just crazy. Okay, it's crazy. So let's continue looking. Let's continue seeing what's going on. Maybe there's more information out here. Let's see what's going on.
Know that person's identity. That has not been shared publicly
Nope.
just yet. But this all comes after the Fort Stewart Air Base was locked down due to.
All right, now we want to return now to this interview that we actually got from a former New York City Police Department police chief. We spoke to him. His name is Robert Boyce, about what happened, about the response to this active shooter situation on this large Army installation.
People know exactly what that entailed today on the base and at the schools. At Fort Stewart, they were told to pretty much hunker down, shelter in place. They were told to lock the doors, lock the windows. So I can just imagine how scary that could have been for a civilian. We know that the military, they have nerves of steel.
They've
been trained, highly trained to deal with situations like this. But can you imagine if you were there visiting a friend, and all of a sudden you were not told not to go outside, stay away from the windows, lock the doors. But thank goodness that was quickly lifted as soon as they knew that the area was safe and everything is going back to normal now at Fort Stewart. Our Madeline Bierster has been live at Fort Stewart off and on throughout the day. And at one base, she was one gate. She was moved to another at one point. But we saw at that time, shortly after they lifted the lockdown, we saw an officer, a soldier, who had a gun pointed as he was looking toward people who were coming toward the gate. And that's to be expected. That's a very tense time. And to also know, not only are you on lockdown, but you know that 5 soldiers have been shot.
Yeah. And like we talked about earlier, these are people that go overseas to protect us at a moment's notice. How many times through the conflicts with Ukraine and Russia did we go out and do a story as some of our third ID soldiers were sent overseas to help out in situations none of us can imagine? Now they return home to what should be that peaceful time to focus on the training, the front end of what they are there for. And then this happens when you can only imagine how many tours some of these soldiers have done for us to protect us from moments like this.
That's a good point, Michelle. And thank you so much for this comment. Pascal, I work for the VA, and depending on reasoning why the soldier did what they did, might not release the name, or they might not release the name until they finish interrogating the soldier. So that makes sense too. I can see that actually happening. Okay. That could be it too. They could be asking him, why did you do what you did? Obviously, this is going to be a mental health situation, of course, as well. Clearly, that's what it is here too. But yeah, I can see why they're trying to hold off from giving out his name until they understand everything and all the reasoning why he did what he did. Right? It's just messed up. Also, here's the other thing too. Now that I come to think of it, now when I think about it too, when it came to the assailant in New York City, he was gone already. There was no reason to interrogate or ask him questions because he had already crossed over. He passed on, baby. He was gone. They found him gone on the 33rd floor, right? We, of course, found out that he left a letter, and he was like, please use my brain, and NFL and CTE. I blame all y'all for all this stuff, right? Okay. But he was gone. This guy's still alive. So I get it. They might be like, well, we're not going to give out the information yet. Let's find out why he did this first, and then we'll release the hounds. Maybe that's what it is. Let's see what's going on over here.
Open. They have been given the all clear. Traffic is flowing in and out as normal from the base. You can check that out here behind me. Just a little bit of traffic, but people have been flowing in and out. We've actually seen some school buses since. We know that the schools were on lockdown for the last couple hours, but they've since been given the all clear. I just want to recap what we know so far. The lockdown happened initially around 11 o'clock. 5 soldiers that we know were shot, taken to the hospital. Again, we're not sure if anybody has passed at this time or the condition of those soldiers. We'll be sure to keep you updated on that front. But this happened just before 11 o'clock. The suspect arrested just 30 minutes later. He was identified and arrested, but he has not publicly been identified. We don't have his identity just yet. We're still waiting on those details. These 5 soldiers that were injured and that were shot were in the 2nd Armored Brigade Combat Team area at the time of the shooting. They were all treated on site and moved to Wynn Army Community Hospital for some further treatment. Some with more severe injuries transported to Memorial, as Shay's been mentioning. And again, no threat to the community. Just 5-10 minutes ago, the all clear officially given from Fort Stewart officials. People are flowing in and out as normal. But again, lots of attention, like you guys have been mentioning. Chris Carr, Caroline Leavitt, President Trump's press secretary, Governor Brian Kemp, Buddy Carter, Senator Raphael Warnock, all of these public officials commenting on this shooting and just praying for these victims that have been injured here. Now, what we do know in the last 5 or 10 minutes or so is that Fort Stewart officials, they're going to be hosting a press conference around 3:30. Hopefully the identity of the shooter and an update on the condition of those 5 soldiers will be relayed to us. We're going to bring you that press conference live at 3:30. Reporting now on Hunter Armenian, WTOC News.
3:30.
The
Dang.
live reports are really our lifeblood when it comes to seeing what's going on out there. Just 40 minutes ago or so, Madeline was able to show us that the gates were officially open at the main gate there at Fort Stewart before we were able to get word. So it sometimes is a way for us to get that information even quicker than we're able to get it from sources, just to be there on the ground.
Oh yeah, that's the best. Where the best reporting happens is when you're there and you can see what's going on. You can talk to people. You can feel the tension sometimes in the atmosphere because of something that's happened like that. But it is good to see as we go back and forth to Madeline. We see how the traffic is picking up and it's seeming more like what could be
Things are going
close
back
to a normal day.
Yeah, things are going back to normal.
It's that normalcy, right, that we try to strive for. I feel like we talked about that word, and that word was used so much through the pandemic, that we were going to return to normalcy. But it also happens in moments like this. It happens in moments like the Oglethorpe Mall shooting, where sometimes it just doesn't feel the same.
Yeah, hold on. She just said, right? Did I hear that correctly? A press conference at 3:30 p.m. Sheesh. That's ridiculous. That's ridiculous. That's a little bit from now. A little bit. I mean, that's a little bit over an hour from now. This is just nuts. Hold on.
Helicopters from Wynn Army Community Hospital, which is the hospital that's there at Fort Stewart, but they are coming here to Memorial Health. The reason that they are is because of its being a level 1 trauma center, the fact that it is equipped to deal with gunshot victims all the time here. We don't know the conditions yet of the soldiers. We do know that, of course, it was another soldier that opened fire on these 5 other individuals that are hurt. We know that 2 are here right now inside that building, hopefully getting the life-saving care that they need. Hopeful to not hear that there is any casualties with this, that these are just gunshot wounds and that it isn't anything worse. But of course, we're going to be bringing you all those details as they come into us, as they're confirmed to us. Then we will tell you if we know anything. But right now, the conditions are unknown at this moment as they are here inside Memorial Health. And we can zoom in a little bit just to show you the presence that's out here. Such a heavy law enforcement presence that, of course, comes whenever there's any shooting victim that comes to the ER. You'll see cop cars, but there's more here than I've seen when we come out here just normally on a normal Wednesday, which of course this is anything but normal. Andy told us earlier that, and I just kind of want to restate that feeling that they feel at Fort Stewart is definitely being felt by people out here as they respond to something that they never expected to have to respond to, which of course is a shooting on a military installation where these people sign up, they sign to join to protect us, and then something like this happens to them. Very somber atmosphere out here right now, but we'll continue to bring you the latest as soon as we see more of those ambulances come in here to the hospital. Brooke, back to you.
Great. Lydia, thank you so much for that live report. We want to play once again for you some video or some audio that we actually got from a dispatch caller. Shannon Royster is joining us now at the desk now. We've been on air since 12 p.m. Tracking this active shooter threat, or was an active shooter at Fort Stewart. We do know that 5 soldiers were injured. Let's go ahead and listen to that audio we mentioned.
Mag Station 1, mutual aid request for a gunshot wound on Fort Stewart. It'll be building 8420 2nd Brigade, 8420 2nd Brigade, gunshot wound, mutual aid.
Now, we've been getting statements from all kinds of lawmakers, federal leaders. We actually just got a new statement that we want to bring you. This is from Georgia's U.S. Senator John Ossoff. I have it on my laptop here. He said, quote, "Today's shooting at Fort Stewart in Georgia is a horrific act of violence. Alicia and I send our prayers to those wounded, to their families, and to the entire Fort Stewart community in light of this terrible act. We also express our gratitude to the first responders who have provided security as well as medical assistance." He said his office is in close contact with leadership at Fort Stewart to deliver all support within its power to provide.
And Governor Brian Kemp sharing his statement on X just moments ago. It says, "As we remain in close contact with law enforcement on the ground, Marty, the girls and I are saddened by today's tragedy at Fort Stewart. We are keeping the victims, their families, and all those who answered the call to serve in our hearts and prayers. And we ask that Georgians everywhere do the same." And Brooke, I understand that this happened just before 11 o'clock or so on a base there. That the call said building 8420 2nd Brigade. I can only imagine what was going through those soldiers' heads, because the fear, because you're supposed to form a brotherhood. You know, it's like a family. And so if it's happening from someone that you trust, it's just unfathomable.
It's devastating. And I'm also curious, Representative Petrie brought up a very good point. He was like, I wonder if there were any signs beforehand. Maybe he had some mental health struggles that maybe someone was aware of, or maybe nobody was aware of. But I'm sure that's something that investigators are going to be looking into. We did hear from a U.S. official that the suspected shooter is actually a male soldier. So you hate to hear that. You were just mentioning the brotherhood that should exist on an Army installment like that. And you also hate to hear, I had been saying earlier in the show, you know, these people commit their lives to serving us and protecting us, and they go overseas to protect us, and now they're being attacked here at home, possibly by one of their own.
And here's, I guess, the video of the active scene as it was happening. I'm just thinking about the parents as well. I mean, it's already a scary thought to send your child into the military because you're afraid that something may happen overseas. This is not what you're thinking about. You're not thinking that your son or daughter will be hurt here at home, here on base. Where you're relaxed and, you know, getting ready for the day. 5 soldiers were injured by this. They were taken to Memorial Health. I see the emergency units coming into Memorial Health right now. I'm not sure. Was it 2 soldiers brought into Memorial Health?
Yeah, what Lydia had told us at her last update was that 2 soldiers so far brought to Memorial Health. When that second ambulance arrived, you could see, this is some of the video from that, there was a very heavy law enforcement presence, sirens activated, a lot of police on scene. Georgia State Patrol did tell us that 3 soldiers were being transported to Memorial Health in Savannah. We haven't seen the 3rd ambulance just yet, but Lydia has been mentioning it's a long drive from Fort Stewart to Memorial Health in Savannah. It's about an hour, and they haven't been able to life flight any of these soldiers because of the weather, and that's why they are taking them by ambulance. But Memorial Health is a level 1 trauma center, so if they are being taken from the Wynn Army Community Hospital to Memorial Health in Savannah,
the best place to be.
Exactly, and it does kind of hint it's maybe their injuries are more serious. But right now we are told that there are no fatalities, just 5 wounded, and we are hoping certainly that stays that way, that we don't hear of any fatalities.
Some good news, if any good news can come out of this.
It's just a hard story.
And you were saying earlier, we wonder if there were any signs, and we're hearing that a lot lately now. When you have an active shooter or a mass shooting, you hear afterwards that maybe there were signs, but people didn't think it was big enough to make a call.
Yeah, I'm still waiting for more information, but then, you know, I'm also thinking about maybe, you know, there's plenty of other things that we need to, you know, talk about and cover. And so I might do that in the meantime, waiting for the actual press conference. But I don't know. I don't know yet. I'm still trying to figure that out too. William, thank you so much for the super chat. Yeah, thanks to the good soldiers of my nation. God bless. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, thank God no one else got hurt. But of course, thinking and praying for all the people out there that are all the victims right now, because this is truly crazy stuff going on right now. But yeah, this is nuts. This is nuts. Let's continue.
At sometimes tense scene. When I first got out here, the traffic was bumper to bumper. People couldn't get into the fort because I imagine right at that main gate, what they were doing was doing extra security, making sure that no one coming in was an additional threat to the base. It was about a half hour after that heavy traffic when I first got here, maybe around 12:15, that they officially locked down the entire base. That continued for a little while until they released that lockdown. Liberty County schools released the lockdown of their schools. And again, things are returning back to normal, but I hesitate using that word because there is nothing normal about this day here on Fort Stewart. Army officials are going to be giving us an update on this incident at 3:30. That's set to happen right in front of the main gates here at Fort Stewart, where we will continue to ask Army officials questions about what happened, who this soldier was, the soldier suspect who shot 5 of his brothers and sisters in arms, how those 5 soldiers are doing there. Lots of questions that we have for Army officials, and hopefully they will be answering those at that 3:30 press conference. But we know that a lot of eyes are on this. The President Donald Trump, saying that he has been briefed on this situation. The governor sharing his thoughts and prayers with those affected by this. This is becoming a very big story. In fact, it's not even the first shooting at Fort Stewart. Several months ago, there was a shooting where a soldier shot his family. So we know this is not the same situation, but we know this is not. This is an unusual situation, not the first time to happen, but certainly scary for the folks on Fort Stewart and the families of the soldiers here on Fort Stewart, trying to figure out answers and trying to get to the bottom of what's going on here at Fort Stewart. I want to just take a quick moment to emphasize something. As you're watching WJCL, you find that myself and we're repeating ourselves. The reason we do this is because we want to make sure that we get the most factual, truthful information out to y'all as soon as we can. We're going to continue to do that all night long. Outside of Fort Stewart, I'm Andy Colt, WJCL 22 News.
Yeah.
All right, Andy. Yeah, thanks so much.
Thank you so much.
I'm trying to get more information, but there really isn't much right now. Okay. I am looking on so many pages, so many sites, and right now there's not a whole lot of information except for, like I said before, there's going to be a press conference in about an hour from now, but that's about it, which is annoying, of course. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, they're all basically saying the same stuff. One person in custody. They're really not saying much else, which is really frustrating. Yeah, I guess I could do a quick recap. Okay. So there have been 5 people that have been hit in a mass tragedy on Fort Stewart in Georgia. It is a very, very large Army base. An assailant has been arrested, has been detained. The only information that they've given out so far is that it's a male assailant. He's in questioning right now. I'm sure they're interrogating the hell out of him right now as we speak. but we have not received any other information except for that there are 3 people that are in critical condition, or they have some severe injuries, and they've been moved to a whole other hospital that can deal with those kind of injuries, a level 1 trauma facility type of hospital. The other 2 are still at this hospital. No, not this hospital. Sorry. But they're still at the other hospital nearby the Army base. There are 3 soldiers that have been hit, that have been sent to Memorial Hospital, which is right here, what we're looking at right here. Okay. Again, still don't know why this person did what they did, who this person is, and we're still waiting to hear some information about that. So nothing confirmed as of yet when it comes to that. I'm trying to get as much information as I can. They just keeps doing it's repeat, right? So again, yeah, it's repeat over and over and over again. It's not a whole lot of information, but I'm going to play this and see what's going on here.
Week or 2 ago, and now he's going to have to lead under a situation like this. I remember back when the soldiers died in a training incident in Lithuania. That was a heartbreaking experience, but it was overseas. Something happening like that here, and of course right now nobody has been confirmed to have died because of this incident, but of course it's still going to have effects when it comes to talking about soldiers' mental health. What was the mental state of the shooter in this, and then how are these victims going to recover, and how are their families doing? That's something, of course, we'll be covering, I foresee, in the coming weeks here at WJCL. And Brooke, Shannon, keep checking back in with me. I'll keep showing you live what's happening out here. But right now, it's pretty still. It's pretty quiet. All the action is inside the hospital. Back to you.
All right, Lydia, thanks so much for that updated information. Right now, we want to take a phone call from Georgia State Senator Ben Watson. Senator Watson, are you there?
Yes, I am here.
Thank you so very much for joining us. I hate that it's such a somber occasion. Talk to us about your feelings on this active shooting at Fort Stewart.
Well, it is very sad and heartbroken, and the Hinesville mayor said it so well, that it is a large community that we have, a large military presence here. It covers almost half of, it breaks Bryan County in half, actually, and covers large surface area. It is the largest military base east of the Mississippi. And, the people that live in our community, and way over half of the families live off base. So we know everyone has contact with people who live there. It's very sad, but it is reassuring to me and to everyone. I hope that, the reports came in just before 11 o'clock, and the suspect was arrested by 11:35, and most of the lockdown was gone by 12:30 or so, and people are continuing on with their lives. But the treatment of these 5 soldiers, they sound like they've done a great job with local care, and then to Wynn Army Community Hospital, and the ones who need the level 1 trauma care are either there or arriving very soon to the level 1 trauma center, where they're very well prepared to do that. The state of Georgia has really done a wonderful job when it comes to level 1 trauma care and trauma care throughout the state. As a matter of fact, we're ranked the highest in the nation in our morbidity and mortality and the best care there is. We're better than all the surrounding states. We're better than all the New England states, which used to be number 1. And it's very reassuring that we have a great residency program, surgery, and we have a great level 1 trauma center that we can depend on. Certainly the interagency aspects relating to this has been great, and you want to continue to utilize that and take care of those soldiers who are wounded.
Watson, you mentioned that it's really a large family there on base, and those families, I can't even imagine what they are thinking about and going through right now. What can you say to them to kind of encourage them in this situation?
Affects us all, but the families are so much more personal to the ones of the soldiers who are on base, and to the families that they support, and the families that support them. It is certainly a team effort on everyone's case. you have to, have the people in your heart to pray for them whose families are directly affected. And it is good that Fort Stewart is having a press conference. They've already said that there is no danger to the community. It relieves a lot of anxiety when it comes to that, and surrounding communities and the schools and so forth. I'm not sure you can say really anything that can comfort the family other than to let them know that we are praying for them.
I thank you so very much, Senator Watson, for calling in and taking the time to speak with us.
Yes, thank you.
And I do want to mention really quick, he had mentioned that press conference. We got information on that. We're told that the 3rd Infantry Division and Fort Stewart Hunter Army Airfield Commander will be holding a press conference. That's going to be happening at 3:30 this afternoon. And we do plan to take that live because this is a story that's actually gaining nationwide attention. It's not just here in Georgia that are carrying this story. We're seeing major stations cover this story, and that includes CNN, also ABC News. We've been in close contact with ABC News about this story. They've been providing us information. We've been providing them with information. You're taking a live look at CNN's webpage. You could see this is their top story right now. 5 soldiers hospitalized after shooting at Fort Stewart. It's the same with ABC News. Both news outlets have updated their websites with information. Not only them, but WJCL 22 News. We also have been in homepage takeover covering the shooting. So for any new information, we've been posting all of that to our website, WJCL.com. We're continuing to follow this breaking news, bringing you updates both on air and online. You can also live stream our coverage on our website or by downloading the WJCL 22 News app and have alerts sent directly to your phone.
But we are going to stay with you. We've been on the air now for several hours, team coverage. That news conference is going to take place in about an hour, and hopefully we can get some more answers, find out maybe who this soldier is, maybe have an idea as to a motive. Maybe they know that the soldier was struggling with something. Let's give you a timeline really quickly of what happened for those of you who are just joining us. We're in a special report for breaking news of an active shooting. That active shooting happened at Fort Stewart. Fort Stewart is providing a timeline of the response to this active shooting. They say law enforcement was dispatched for a possible shooting in the second complex at 10:56 a.m. That complex was Building 8420, 2nd Brigade. That installation was put on lockdown at 11:04 a.m. I understand that schools went on lockdown as well. Liberty County schools went on lockdown, and today was the first day of school when you're so very excited, looking forward to see your friends and your new teachers and all that school has to offer. And to have to experience this, especially for the young children who don't know what's happening as far as mass shootings and things of that nature. But to be so terrified now, maybe to go back to school, maybe they don't understand that it's safe to go to school, that they're okay. I really hate to hear that. Now, that shooter, we understand, was apprehended at 11:35 a.m., just a half hour after officers responded to this call. We were told that the suspect is a male soldier. Fort Stewart lifted that lockdown of the main containment area at 12:10 p.m. Again, that complex was on lockdown, but I understand that the lockdown has been lifted.
The all clear has been given at this point, which is some good news.
We want to show you a map right now of where that 2nd Brigade area is located near the Army base. It's about 3 miles away from the 2nd Brigade on Sunbury Road. That's where we have had Andy Cole. He's been live from the very start. I understand he was the first reporter there on the scene. We have Lydia Blackstone, who is at Memorial Health. 2 of those soldiers had to be taken to Memorial Health because they could not be life flighted due to another weather impact day. Those soldiers, I understand, are there now, hopefully getting the much needed treatment that they need. It's a trauma unit there at Memorial Health, so they're going to get the best treatment, the best care possible. We have not heard that there are any casualties in this situation. So if there's any good news to come out of it, it is that everybody is praying for these soldiers, that they come out of this well and good and can recover soon.
Right, and that's what we've been hearing from some lawmakers. We want to show you that statement from Governor Brian Kemp. Once again, he posted on X earlier today saying, quote, "As we remain in close contact with law enforcement on the ground, Marty, the girls, and I are saddened by today's tragedy at Fort Stewart. We're keeping the victims, their families, and all of those who answer the call to serve in our hearts and prayers. And we ask that Georgians everywhere do the same. But really, at this point, it's not just Georgians keeping these soldiers in their hearts and prayers. I think it's all throughout the country. People are watching what's happening here in Georgia and just praying that these soldiers pull through and that their injuries are not life-threatening. Again, we do know that 2 soldiers were taken to Memorial Health in Savannah. They were being treated at Wynn Army Community Hospital, and then they were transferred. That's likely because their injuries required them to be transferred to Memorial Health. All right, we want to turn now to an interview we actually got from the former New York City police chief. He is a law enforcement expert. His name is Robert Boyce. He is answering questions about the response to an active shooter at the Fort Stewart Army base.
Well, I think when you locate exactly where it was on the base, and that's important to understand, it's a very big base with 18,000 residents there, soldiers, and another 4,000 civilians. So it's almost a little city in of itself. But the fact that it is off a ways, and this 2nd Armored Brigade, that's important that you're able to lock it down right there, get as many witnesses as possible. You have someone in custody. Now, the motive of what happened right now, what happened, and what started this whole incident. That's where we are right now. Again, there's Army police there as well as civilians and the FBI. This thing will emerge very quickly, a lot of information. And I think a press conference is coming very quickly. It's a closed down location, and you have to, you have to have clearance to get in there. So we don't know if it's an external threat or it's an internal where this came from. And that we'll find out in the coming hours as it unfolds. Was it someone coming in like we had in New Jersey, the threat there, or is it something wholly different where we don't have this, that something came within an argument? And to make very sure point, most of the firearms are on lockdown. However, personal firearms are allowed, but they are registered. So what started this whole thing, it's unclear right now. How many people have been injured will tell us more as we go forward. But right now, lock it down, get those folks that are injured, those casualties, get into area hospitals, and do the best you can. Everybody's involved in this. Schools are locked down. That'll be lifted somewhat soon now that they have an arrest. Is it a single person or is it more than that? Seems like it's a single person right now.
Yes, we understand that it's a single person. That was Chief Robert Boyce, New York Police Department. Chief, thank you so very much for your thoughts and statements. Right now, we want to go to Savannah Mayor Van Johnson. He's joining us now by Zoom. Mayor, can you hear us?
I can.
Mayor, I mean, I don't know how many times in the most, few weeks or so that we have heard about shootings. I know you are sick and tired of hearing about people shooting other people. But when you heard this news, talk to us about your thoughts.
Well, it was a lot of phone calls all at once. Then a call from our friends at Fort Stewart, a lieutenant colonel that apprised me of what was going on. We know that we love our dog-faced soldiers in Savannah. And certainly in Hinesville, Liberty County, I reached out to Liberty County Chairman Donald Lovett, to Mayor Carl Rouse of the city of Hinesville. We're all one community, so whatever help that the Savannah Police Department, Savannah Fire, and the resources of the city of Savannah could provide, we were willing, able, and ready to provide that. The base got it under control relatively quickly. About 30 minutes after the incident happened, the suspect was apprehended. We now have at least 2 of these soldiers in Savannah at Memorial. We know that Memorial are among the best trauma folks in the world, so we know they're receiving the best of care. And we just continue to pray not only for those soldiers, but certainly those families. These soldiers protect us all around the world, and they go into dangerous situations to keep us safe. And the last place that they would ever expect to be victimized is at their very own home. So we stand in solidarity with them, and we continue to pray as we figure out what happened and what occurred, and then we'll hold those accountable.
Any encouragement to the families of those kids? I guess Liberty County schools, they were put on lockdown first day of school, if you can imagine that. Like I said, they were very excited to attend classes, and then this happens.
When I was growing up, and I'm sure when you were as well, Shannon, the things we did not have to worry about. I mean, I think the worst thing we had to worry about was what color sneakers we were going to wear for our first day of school.
Exactly.
We did not have to worry about lockdowns due to violence. And this is something that no young person should have to have in their memory. And as you know, I'm very, very concerned about having to deal with those types of things.
And Mayor Van Johnson, this comes just weeks after the shooting at Oglethorpe Mall. I mean, what was your reaction when you heard about this active shooter situation at Fort Stewart?
I think I was just very concerned. I was like, not again. And then again, my questions go to where it was occurring. You know, it's certainly out of our county, out of our city, but we're all one community. And then my mind went to how can we be of assistance? How can we help to support our friends at Fort Stewart? How can we support our friends in Liberty County? How can we support our friends in the city of Hinesville? And now we're helping to take care of some of those heroes. So we will do that. And I trust that the process will play out the way it's supposed to play out, as the suspect, as I understand, has been apprehended and is now being questioned.
Yes, that is so true. And they're going to have a press conference at 3:30. So hopefully we get more answers as to what went down, how this all unfolded. Mayor Johnson, thank you so very much for taking this time to speak with us.
Thank you so much for covering it.
Just really quick, something just happened about an hour ago because people have been sharing a photo of somebody saying online. They've been sharing a lot of like, oh yeah, this guy has been, you know, let's see, sorry. Hold on one second. So the thing is there have been a lot of people that have been saying they've been sharing this one photo of this guy over and over and over again. Okay, saying that he is the actual assailant. He finally, I'm so glad, man. I'm gonna pat myself on the back real quick. I'm real happy because he actually spoke out and he's like, "What the hell's wrong with y'all? I ain't the shooter." He's like, "I'm at the transition office. What the hell's wrong with y'all?" Because people are sharing a photo of this guy that it's not him. It's not him at all. Okay. And he's like, y'all out of pocket for this. And I don't blame him. I don't blame him for being angry. I'm really happy that I didn't, because it was like so quick that information was coming out, right? And it was getting shared like crazy. And they're like, oh, it's this guy. It's definitely this guy, right? And he's like, nope, it's not me. Stop lying on me. What the hell? I'm at the damn transition office. So, yeah, crazy that he's going on the internet and basically saying, y'all need to stop posting lies about me. I have nothing to do with this. But that's what I mean, right? That's what I mean. There's a lot of speculation and a lot of theory and a lot of rumor, and there's a lot of, you see what I'm saying? Everybody wants to be the first to put out the information, but you don't know for sure if that information is true. They just pick anybody. Like, listen, this is the one thing that's really frustrating about it, because people can go, oh, Fort Stewart, find anyone on the internet. Find anyone on the internet. It doesn't even need to be the person. It doesn't even need to be a person that remotely looks intimidating at all or looks remotely unhinged. You could just go pick anybody you want and then just go, that's the guy. Take his photo, put it out on the internet, and just basically say, well, you know, he is wearing Army clothing. And in this particular guy, he was like given the double middle finger to a photo or in a photo. So people are taking that photo and being like, oh, that's the guy. See how aggressive he is? He's flipping the bird twice into the camera. This man a thug, right? But they were wrong. See what I'm saying? This is exactly what happened when it was revealed about the New York guy, right? I was like, I don't know if this is the guy. But then instantly, as soon as I put his face up there, it was because they already had his face on other major sites, right? So again, it is just really funny how people will sit there and go, "Oh no, it's all fake news," or "Oh, this is the guy." I mean, this is the guy. It's definitely the guy, and it's like, no, it's not. Just because he's got his middle fingers out and he's wearing, army, his uniform doesn't automatically mean that he is the assailant, and that's what happens a lot. So the guy spoke out and he's like, "Y'all got it wrong. That's not me. I didn't do this." Okay. So I don't know. Very, very interesting. Let's continue on. You see, I'm wondering if I should cover, and talk about some other things in the meantime, because like I said, I feel like we're hearing from a bunch of people, which of course I'm sticking around. In 45 minutes, they're supposed to be doing a press conference. Hopefully in this press conference, they give us more information. They give us the identity of the actual assailant and all that, right? But, there's clearly other things that we could talk about, that we could rap about in the meantime, leading up to this press conference. So I'm sticking around with you guys. I ain't moving. As you see, I'm still here. I'm sitting through all this crap, and it's all the same stuff over and over and over again. It's a tragedy. Can't believe this happened. 4 or 5 people have been hit, which we already know about all that, right? But again, you see what I'm saying? I'm just like, okay, do we just hit this on repeat over and over and over again, or do we discuss a few other things? And of course, when it's time to actually get into the press conference, then we're ready to go into the press conference, right? So, because there's a few other things I've been wanting to talk to you guys about for a minute. So let me finish this interview here, okay, and then we'll make a decision. Because we got 45 minutes to kill. Okay, 45 minutes. We could cover some other things in the meantime while we wait.
Absolutely. We want to turn now to a statement we got from the FBI earlier today. It reads in part, quote, FBI Atlanta Savannah office is aware of the incident at Fort Stewart and is coordinating with Army Criminal Investigation Division for any assistance that might be needed. So you have not just, local law enforcement personnel responding and then looking into this incident. You also have the FBI Atlanta office looking into it possibly as well.
Like you said, the entire country knows about this now, and they are on it. They are praying for us. I understand the White House is aware of this as well. Representatives continue to write in. This is coming from Representative Rick Allen releasing this statement in a post on X. He says, quote, Robin and I join the governor and all Georgians in praying for the victims, their loved ones, and all the brave men and women stationed at Fort Stewart. We are so grateful for the law enforcement officers and first responders on the ground who have responded to this tragedy swiftly.
We want to check back in now with WJCL 22 News' Lydia Blackstone. She is at Memorial Health in Savannah. I'm just getting word actually that we actually don't have her at the moment, but she's been there covering the area as soldiers actually arrived to the hospital. They were first treated at Wynn Army Community Hospital and transferred to Memorial Health. At this point, we know that 2 soldiers have arrived at Memorial Health in Savannah. Mayor Van Johnson actually just mentioned that that's a great hospital for people to go to. They can offer better care to more extreme cases. Now, I am hearing that we do have Lydia Blackstone. So, Lydia, what have you been seeing the last few minutes since the last time we checked in with you?
Shannon, hey, Brooke, y'all are doing an excellent job kind of.
Hold on real quick. We got something else here. It's in regards to this as well. So let me just pull this up. They're giving us a little bit more information about the assailant, allegedly. Wow. Interesting, though. This is some interesting information. Let's take a look at this. They're saying, according to CNN, now we got to take them with a grain of salt, because when it came to the New York tragedy, they said possibly a white male. And it's like, no, that was not a white male. But they said here that this particular person is indeed a soldier. He is indeed male. But what's interesting about this is that they're saying it's important to note here that it's unclear whether this soldier is actually a soldier at Fort Stewart. Pretty interesting, right? Wouldn't you say? Very interesting, right? So I am kind of curious about that as well, right? Let's take a listen.
Custody, but it's important to know reporting coming from my colleague John Miller, from a law enforcement official. We knew that the shooter is a soldier, but here's a new information. The shooter is an Army sergeant. He is a male, he is alive, and he is in custody. But it's important to note here that it is unclear whether this soldier is a soldier at Fort Stewart. But again, the shooter is an Army sergeant. He is a male. He is alive and he is in custody. That is according to a law enforcement official. Hopefully we'll get more information on that at this 3:30 update that we're anticipating here from officials.
What's really frustrating, I'm going to play that again for you guys. So you guys, for those of y'all in the nosebleed seats, but what's interesting about this is that they got a point. They don't know if this, as far as us, we don't know if he's an actual soldier from that area, from Fort Stewart. He might be a soldier somewhere else, right? And of course, he could be mad as hell about God knows what and have some sort of retaliation against Fort Stewart. I don't know. But like I said, this is just very, very strange. Okay? It's very, very strange. Let's play it one more time.
Reporting coming from my colleague John Miller, from a law enforcement official. We knew that the shooter is a soldier, but here's a new information. The shooter is an Army sergeant. He is a male. He is alive. And he is in custody. But it's important to note here that it is unclear whether this soldier is a soldier at Fort Stewart. But again, the shooter is an Army sergeant. He is a male. He is alive and he is in custody. That is according to a law enforcement official. Hopefully we'll get more information on that at this 3:30 update that we're anticipating here from officials.
So in about 40 minutes from now, a little bit less than 40 minutes from now, we're supposed to be getting this press conference from them. We should get more information here shortly, or, within the hour, right? Not within the hour, but within less than an hour, we should be getting some information about what the hell's actually going on here. And what is this guy? Who is this guy? And apparently they're saying he's a sergeant. So now he's a sergeant. And it's not clear if he's actually a soldier from Fort Stewart. He could have been in his Army fatigue, just walked in there and opened fire just because he wanted to. That's very much a possibility. But like I said, the news, the news is all over the place. You know what I mean? Well, 1 minute we find out that 5 people are gone, and then a second later, 5 people aren't gone. They're all alive and they're all being sent to the hospital, right? And their injuries and them surviving is still pending, right? But again, like I said, it's crazy. Even Fox News is confirming this. Hold up. Even Fox News is saying this too, that this guy is a sergeant. Let's take a listen.
Fox News has just confirmed that the shooter was a U.S. soldier. Officials tell Fox News from the military that the shooter was a male U.S. Army sergeant. So we know, as suspected, the shooter was a soldier, a sergeant, wounding 5 U.S. soldiers on Fort Stewart. At least 2 of those 5 now been taken to the hospital by ambulance, treated on the scene initially, but at least 2 serious enough to be taken by ambulance. There could be a 3rd on the way soon. Bad weather for helicopter flights, so they rushed them there. No fatalities. 5 shot, and the shooter, we've just learned, is a sergeant. No word yet on any possible motivation for these attacks.
So yeah, I'm still wanting to know, what is the motive here? Why did he do what he did, right? Because it's pretty insane. And thank God, these 5 are still alive, right? But it still makes you wonder, why did this go down the way it went down? Are we going to get that answered, right? It's just crazy stuff, y'all. Hold on.
Walking through all the new developments, all the reaction from people. But what we're hearing from Memorial Health here on the scene is that we know that 2 are inside receiving that life-saving care that they may or may not need. We don't know how critical their conditions are, but we know if they're being taken here and not being treated at Winn Army Community Hospital, which is the installations hospital at Fort Stewart. Since they've been taken here, we know that it is a serious condition. We haven't gotten any confirmation yet if a third is coming, but right now, 2 people are being treated inside. Of course, it's a heartbreaking moment for the community of Hinesville, but also the Fort Stewart community. We just heard from Mayor Van Johnson there, who said we as Savannahans want to do anything that we can to support, and it very much impacts us because you think about Hunter Army Airfield. It's just about 10 minutes down the street from where I'm standing. That's where a bunch of soldiers that are third ID dog-faced soldiers also are located. And here at the hospital, those inside here are doing everything that they can to take care of those 2 soldiers that were hurt in such a tragic incident. We're hopeful to hear from somebody from Memorial Health's ER how their trauma response works when they have an incident like this. I know they are very well equipped. We know the people inside there. We know the ER director. He's a good man who wants to come out here and talk to us. But of course, they are dealing with so much on the inside there that is where they are needed most. But we see in times like this, we see a lot of bad coming out of this. Of course, this is very tragic, but we see a lot of good in people as well. And that's what we see from first responders here. They're stepping up and helping. And it doesn't matter who comes through their doors. They are there and they are ready. And that's what we saw when that first ambulance pulled up. We saw all those medical professionals rush in to help them. Right now, the good news is we don't have anyone confirmed to have died from this incident. We just know now that they have serious conditions that would warrant them coming here to Memorial Health in Midtown Savannah. But we'll continue to bring all those details as soon as we get new details here at Midtown Savannah's Memorial Health as they treat these 2 soldiers. Brooke, Shannon, back to you.
Just a quick question for you, because you talk to military members all the time with your Voices of Valor segment that you do. Thank goodness most of those pieces are upbeat pieces, happy pieces, but you have also covered those military members who come back from war, who are still dealing with the trauma, who are still trying to deal with getting through that and having memories, and they form a brotherhood, a sisterhood back home because of mutual things that they have experienced, but that's overseas. They usually don't have to recover from trauma here in the States. Are you hearing anything from those military members that you keep in contact with?
Yeah, Shannon, I'm getting many different texts from veterans out here that have been telling us that they're watching, that this matters so deeply to them because they were stationed there at Fort Stewart. It's a military family around these areas, and we talk and we do reports about veteran mental health when a situation like this comes into play. I've done many different stories talking to these soldiers about what they've seen when they have served overseas and what their life is like here. Adjusting back to civilian life is very challenging for so many of them. It's sign up to serve. So much of the third ID been deployed in Eastern Europe. We had those other soldiers in Lithuania that died during a training accident. I knew that was a big moment for the dog-faced soldiers and the whole community because they had to work to get through that loss. And luckily right now we're not reporting on loss, but we are reporting on a heartbreak in this community that they're going to have to walk through every single step of this together. And then hopefully we'll be talking more about veteran mental health in the future. I know I've done plenty of other reports on that. So I am getting texts from the veterans and the soldiers that I have talked to before, either asking me what's going on, what's the latest details, and then the next text that follows usually is what can I do to help? And right now, most people can just stay as connected as possible, send their love and send their prayers to the people out at Fort Stewart that are hurting after a day like this. Shannon, Brooke.
Lydia, thank you so very much for that input. I mean, she can give it to us because, again, she covers
works so closely.
Yes, every single week she's speaking with them, and it's just so sad to see it happening here at home.
Right, and she was the one who actually first confirmed for us that there was an active shooter at Fort Stewart. We want to turn now to WJCL 22 News' Andy Cole. He was actually the first reporter on scene when all of this was unfolding. Andy, what's the latest where you are?
Well, it has certainly been a heavy and intense day right outside the main gate here at Fort Stewart, but it has calmed down significantly from when I first arrived here at 11:30. In fact, as I turn around here, I can see Army officials. I'll step out of the way. You may or may not be able to get a look at this. Army officials are actually setting up right outside the main gate a press conference. That is where at 3:30 In just about 45 minutes, Army officials are expected to give updates on what has occurred here outside the 2nd Armored Brigade Combat Team area here at Fort Stewart in Southeast Georgia. We know 5 soldiers have been shot, and we know that a suspect, who a U.S. official tells us is a male U.S. soldier, has been taken into custody, but there are still many questions, and that's what we'll be asking Fort Stewart officials. Our Tia Maggio is getting ready for that press conference and is waiting with Army officials to be escorted to that press conference at 3:30. And I know that's going to be a big question, is how this could happen. I know mental health will be another big question. That's something Lydia Blackstone was just talking about in her hit, and the work that's being done to improve soldiers' mental health. But again, there will be many questions as to this suspect's mental health as we get more and more into this investigation. But again, things out here outside the main gate have calmed down significantly. I've been outside of Fort Stewart many, many times for many different types of stories, and this looks like an average day outside of Fort Stewart. Security looks pretty average. The flow of traffic looks pretty average, but I can tell you there is nothing normal about this day outside of Fort Stewart when 5 soldiers were shot by, according to a U.S. official, another soldier himself. So we'll be continuing to press officials and bringing the latest when we have it. For now, outside of Fort Stewart's main gate, I'm Andy Cole, WJCL 22 News.
Andy Cole reporting. Thank you so very much for that report. And we want to tell you about new footage showing the moments when Fort Stewart officials started warning people nearby about a lockdown being put in place.
Yeah, take a look at this footage. Now, I do want to mention we have 2 new statements to bring you. We heard from the Secretary of the Army. He released a statement. He said, quote, "We are praying for the 5 soldiers who were shot this morning at Fort Stewart. The suspect is in custody and an investigation is ongoing. My team remains in close contact with Fort Stewart and is ready to assist with anything they need." And we also are hearing from Senator Reverend Raphael Warnock, that's a Georgia U.S. Senator. He said, quote, "I'm heartbroken to see the news of an active shooter incident at Fort Stewart today. I'm monitoring the situation closely and join all of Georgia as we pray for the safety of our service members, staff, and their families."
It's just amazing how everything just came together so quickly. As soon as they had heard word that there was an active shooter, they went on the hunt for this person. They took him down, I guess, quickly. I know
Within
it happened
40
just before
minutes.
11. Okay, so 40 minutes, and then quickly got those soldiers to hospitals and then took them to Memorial Health as well, where they are being treated right now. A well-oiled machine. Sadly, they have to practice for things like this now.
That's right.
You know, active shooter drills. And everything that they practiced went into effect today. And looking at that woman talking to the police officer there on base, I'm just looking at how she's dressed so casually. You know,
No
families
idea.
are on base and, you know, you're taking a stroll in the morning, you're exercising, you're going to see friends. You don't imagine something like this happening on your Army base where you're supposed to be able to trust the men and women who are there.
Absolutely. And we are hearing from a law enforcement expert about this incident.
ABC News contributor, former NYPD Chief Robert Boyce, answering questions about the response to an active shooter situation on this very large.
We'll be coming back to that. I'm going to play a little bit more a few other things here.
We're learning about
This CNN clip was put up about an hour ago, so let's take a look at this.
more on the active shooter situation. CNN's Isabel Rosales is back with us. Isabel, what is the latest?
Dana, we have new reporting from my colleagues Ryan Young and Mark Morales that the shooter is no longer a threat. That is from 2 law enforcement sources. And again, that's from my colleagues Ryan Young and Mark Morales, hearing that shooter no longer a threat. Now, we know that the U.S. Army's Fort Stewart is under lockdown still. That is according to the police spokesperson, who also said that the incident is centering around the 2nd Armored Brigade combat team area. That person told us, CNN, that this is connected to an active shooter. But again, the newest update is that shooter is no longer a threat. Now, the Fort Worth Facebook page, they posted on there that casualties have been reported, and we've seen from the site right here, you're seeing this video of the U.S. Army Emergency Medical Service, an ambulance with its lights on, sirens on, speeding at a high rate beyond Fort Stewart, presumably to a hospital there. All gates currently within Fort Stewart are closed. Let me give you a bit of background information about Fort Stewart. This is the largest Army installation east of the Mississippi. You're talking about over 280,000 acres, according to their website, a large area that also employs a ton of people, over 25,000 people. And on top of that, more than 10,000 soldiers, Army civilians, family members who reside there at the base. This is also home to the 3rd Infantry Division. They train at Fort Stewart, active and reserve Army units. And I think we have a map as well where you can see that the Fort Stewart is just about 40 miles southwest of Savannah, Georgia. Obviously, a very serious situation happening here. Reports of casualties, reports now from law enforcement sources that
we now hear, this is updates right here. They're just, it's interesting that they're just giving out little bits, like bits and bits and bits and bits and bits. But I do have another update. This is a young guy. This suspect that they got, this sergeant, okay, at this Fort Stewart situation, he's 28 years old. So the suspect is 28 years old. He's male and he's a sergeant. We don't know if he's a sergeant or a soldier from Fort Stewart, or if he's from somewhere else. They do not know about that. The suspected shooter arrested in May for driving under the influence, law enforcement officials said. So this suspected person also has an arrest record, okay? He has a DUI. He was arrested in May at a traffic stop for driving under the influence. And this is what they're saying so far. This is something interesting, an interesting fact. They're saying that there have been over 260 mass tragedies so far this year. That is insane. 260 mass tragedies this year so far. That's crazy. So, just so you know, he's 28 years old. He is a male and he's a sergeant. They don't know if he's a sergeant from Fort Stewart or if he happened to just walk into this particular Fort Stewart and just open fire just because. So we're still trying to find out about that. But I'm getting little, like I said, they're literally like just sprinkling breadcrumbs now. Okay. Just breadcrumbs, little, and it's like I said, little morsels, and it's frustrating, But hopefully, this press conference will be filled with information, right? Hopefully, so because yesterday when Dollar Store Slim Shady got arrested, they had a press conference, and there was a whole lot of nothing in regards to that press conference. You feel me? So I'm hoping we got something here, okay, for this. So, for this press conference, we'll see what happens. I mean, we got 20 some odd minutes, okay? We got a little over 20 minutes, okay, till they're supposed to have this press conference. But let's continue on. There's more information. Like I said, I'm bouncing back and forth. I'm trying to get as much information as I can. Just ride with me, guys, okay? But that's the latest update. He's male, just so we can stack it all together, okay? Because they're just stacking it all on top of each other, okay? So now we know this is a male. He is a soldier. He is a sergeant, and he is 28 years old, okay? One thing they have not confirmed yet is whether or not this 28-year-old sergeant is actually from Fort Stewart, or if he just randomly walked into this Fort Stewart, into this Army base, and opened fire on these innocent lives. I don't know. That's one thing we're still trying to figure out. But one thing is for sure. He is male. He is a sergeant. He is 28 years old. and he's a male. Did I mention that he's male? Yeah, he's a male.
That shooter is no longer a threat. We're making the phone calls, and we have a crew going on the ground right now, too, to try to get more details as to what happened here, Dana.
Okay, thank you. The headline, of course, with this update from you, Isabel, is that authorities there are saying that the active shooter is no longer a threat. We don't know exactly what that means, and certainly we don't know what it means when it comes to the casualties. I want to go back to Juliet Kayyem. Juliet, what does this information tell you?
Well, there's a gap between the statement that the active shooter is no longer a threat and the fact they're still under lockdown. That will mean they want to ensure that there's no other potential shooters or other shooters or dangers on the facility, as they will clearly want to reopen it, get people out and about. They are all under lockdown. In response to the fact that at least the person who was originally the threat is no longer that. The questions the Pentagon will have right now are, was this an interior threat as the facility was described, as the fort was described? These are mini cities. They've got not just military, they've got family members, kids, they've got civilians, they've got private sector, people running the restaurants, people running gyms. I mean, these are active and vibrant facilities. So there's lots of people coming in and out. They all should be badged. They all should have security clearances. And so figuring out whether the threat was internal, someone that was known to the facility, either someone in the military, related to the military, or a vendor or contractor, is going to be key. Or did someone breach, some outsider breach security? Both of those are relevant for force protection. That's what we care about in terms of the Pentagon, want to protect the service members and also their families. And so once the lockdown is lifted, we will know a lot more and anticipate that we will hear both from the Pentagon and, of course, local law enforcement, who are engaged as well, about what in fact happened and at the facility.
Yeah, and as you said, it's like a small city. There are civilians and families there. You mentioned schools. I believe that schools have gone back into session early, but that's what happens, I think, in Georgia generally. And my colleague Brianna Keeler was just sending me a message that is true at Fort Stewart. So there are a lot of factors and indicators that they need to focus on right now. Again, Juliet, please, thank you so much for your expertise. Don't go anywhere. I now want to go to retired FBI Special Agent Daniel Bruner. Daniel, the reports that the FBI is responding. That probably isn't surprising. If you were one of those asked to respond, what would you be doing first?
First thing I would be doing is providing support to the authority, the local law enforcement, and the base security, the MPs that are there, providing them whatever resources the FBI has there in this area, so providing them the resources that they have to make sure that the threat is mitigated, that the no longer is a threat to the base, and find out if there are secondary threats to them. Maybe provide Special Agent bomb techs to support their bomb, and look at vehicles, see if there's a secondary incident. And the FBI is there is to provide their support until the situation is brought under control, the threat is mitigated, and then they'll be able to move on. And whether investigative support, whether it goes beyond the state of Georgia or internationally, and that's their main priorities, to get there on scene and provide the support they need.
And what about what Juliet mentioned, the lag between the reporting that the active shooter is no longer active, or at least that person is no longer a threat, and the fact that the base appears to still be in lockdown?
Well, this is a very fluid situation right now. Obviously, lots of a lot of reports are coming out of the base. We're getting lots of different, information, a lot of intelligence streams. Without a doubt, it's going to take hours to make sure that the threat, like I said, is mitigated, and there no longer is an active threat. There could be secondary devices. There could be other shooters around the base that are hidden. Obviously, they have to deal with all the victims. There's a lot of things, a lot of agencies that are responding there. So there's a lot of information, a lot of news that's coming out of the base. Quite often we see in incidents like this, a lot of the information that we first hear within the first hour or two is incorrect. So we need to give it time, let the authorities control the situation, get everybody under control, and I'm sure we'll have a news briefing. Quite commonly, it's known in crisis management, have a news briefing as quickly as possible once the threat is mitigated to let the public know. But there's no longer a threat to the community. But we need to let them be on base and make sure, and whatever reports that may be coming out, we can't really take that too seriously until we know from the leadership themselves.
Yeah, I mean, that certainly does make a lot of sense to keep everybody on lockdown, to be absolutely sure. You don't want to let people go out and learn something that you didn't know. What about the fact that, unfortunately, active shooters we're maybe way too used to reporting on this in the United States of America these days. But when this happens on a military base, how does law enforcement approach this in a different way?
Well, like Juliet said, there's lots of factors. They're going to have to look at whether this was a breach. And we've got incidents where people attempted to access the base at Quantico and the Marine Corps base at Quantico, where the FBI Academy is. That happened a number of years ago. 2 individuals attempted to enter the base and they were not authorized. So there are breaches, there could be situations, but we also have to think about the Fort Hood shootings that have occurred in the past. Those are individuals from the military who have turned on their own people inside the base. So there are a number of different factors. There are a number of different situations that have to be considered, and looking at the whole situation as to, number one, make sure that the threat is mitigated, and then look at who the threat was, and then figuring out how it occurred.
Yeah, I mean, of course, the first thing I thought of was Fort Hood, just as you just mentioned. I mean, we have no idea what the specifics are of this.
I'm going to another one here real quick. We got more. More and more stuff. And then apparently, this is just a out of left field type of situation. But, if you have been following and keeping an eye on the whole Epstein situation, apparently the attorney representing the victims of Epstein are holding a press conference right now as we speak as well. Just something to think about, just to keep on your radar, because I might be talking about that in a video in a little bit. Okay. Because that's very interesting as well. Let's take a look at this one here. This is a more updated video here from CNN.
I want to bring in John Miller, our chief intelligence and law enforcement analyst. You found out, John, that this was a soldier just a short time ago. We're learning this is an Army sergeant who is suspected of being the shooter in this case. Tell us a little bit about what you're learning.
Well, we're learning he is a member of the military, member of the Army, a sergeant, and he comes from Jacksonville, Florida. He may be assigned to that base, but as Josh Campbell was pointing out before, there's a couple of ways to examine something like this when it's fluid. Is it an insider threat? Was it an outsider threat? If it was an outsider threat, how did they get on the base? How did they get through layers of security? How did they bring a weapon? Those things peel away now. We're looking at someone who was likely assigned to that base, as Juliet points out, likely knew the people who are the victims in this case. That's not certain, but it's just as likely that he had intended targets because of the limited number of victims here and the fact that apparently he was somebody who was authorized to be on that base. Questions still to be resolved. What was the issue behind this? What is the motive? This is an individual who is known to law enforcement from a couple of recent encounters. That could be a factor. It may be unrelated. Right now, the FBI is sending a team from the Savannah Resident Agency to meet with Army CID, Criminal Investigative Division, to work on a joint investigation to peel back what do they have in terms of witnesses, what do they have in terms of who knows what the motive may have been, and what, if anything, the suspect is saying since he is in custody.
And speaking to that, Chief Ramsey, talk to us about the process of now trying to extract information from this individual, and also what you make of the fact that he was known to law enforcement, even though John makes clear that it's not certain at this moment whether it was related to the shooting or not.
Well, as far as the individual goes who's in custody now, the sergeant, depending on whether or not, I don't know if John knows this or not. I know he's in custody, but was he injured at all during the arrest? Is he willing to talk? Because he does have Fifth Amendment rights where he may not talk, but they certainly will be interrogating him to try to find out more about him, the motive, and so forth. Previous contact with police, under what circumstances? How did that happen? What was going on at that particular time? You know, there's still a lot of questions in the general raised as to how he actually had access to a firearm. You know, I would presume, since it sounds like he lives on the base, but how did he get access to a firearm? What kind of firearm did he have? Where exactly did this take place? When you played the tape from the 911 call, I'll call it, but the emergency center, and they were dispatching the medics, and they said that the area where the wounded were was secured. Well, that tells me that it's either a warm zone where they were able to get in there and actually provide some emergency medical, or he left that area after the shooting and he was apprehended somewhere else. So there's a lot of information that we don't have right now, but I'm sure at 3:30 we're going to get filled in with a lot of detail. And John, you've done a great job in providing us with a lot of information that we probably would not otherwise have had.
Yeah, and let's just ask John before we get in a quick break here. Do we know anything, John, about the physical condition of the suspected shooter here?
So we don't know if he was wounded or injured in this, but that he is in custody, and that he is not among the fatalities as far as we are told. And again, we're at a preliminary stage here, even still, because, you know, right now, until the FBI gets on the scene and takes over the law enforcement function, the people in charge on the ground are local law enforcement and the military, and it's they've been fairly guarded about things like number of victims and their specific conditions.
Let's bring in Al Williams. He's a Georgia state representative who represents that area, Liberty County, which is where part of Fort Stewart is. And talk to us a little bit, if you wouldn't, Representative, and we're incredibly sorry for what your community is going through. Talk to us a little bit about what you're learning and what you're thinking as you're finding out that the suspected shooter is an Army sergeant.
Well, thank you so much for having me. Sir, our prayers, my prayers, and the prayers of those who live in this district goes out to the family and the families that are involved. And certainly we're very disturbed by this. The 2nd Armored Brigade is one of the leading fighting brigades in the Army, and they train. But it's very obvious that the Army was very prepared for the situation this morning by their quick action. The Liberty County Sheriff's Office and Hinesville Police assisted. But we've heard that there, of course, 5 people have been shot. We don't know the seriousness of their injuries. We do know that 2 have been transported to Savannah for a level 1 hospital over there. We also know that the shooter was a sergeant. This is heartbreaking. I mean, these are the folks that protect us. And so we're heartbroken by that. But this community is very military oriented. We have the highest percentage of military connected citizens in the entire state of Georgia, between retirees, those that are on active duty, and the families and spouses. So it affects us. And so many of them live out. So there are relationships here. But we thank the Army for the swiftness of their actions to capture this person. In less than an hour, all of this was done. This is the way the Army operates here. And when you hit a fort like Fort Stewart, it's not long before the wrath falls.
Yeah. Representative, I wonder, I just want to clarify something that we heard you say. Were victims that you're aware of transferred to Savannah?
Yes, I'm aware of 2 victims transferred to Savannah. And I speculate that that's because of the nature of the injuries, because that's a level 1 trauma center when you go to Memorial Hospital in Savannah. And there have been 2 transferred over there.
And so 3, to your knowledge, were not transferred. Is that right?
To my knowledge, 3 were not transferred, but treated at Wynn Army Hospital. We're not certain whether they were admitted or not, but they were treated first on scene, then transported to Wynn Army Hospital.
Yeah, that is important information to keep in mind as we try to gather the latest details on the status of these 5 soldiers who were shot. Representative, I wonder if you could paint a picture for us of what this community that you represent is like, and specifically its relationship with Fort Stewart.
Well, I've lived here all my life. Fort Stewart became a fort in 1941 and became a big part of this community, as well as neighboring communities in Bryan County and Savannah, of course. The Army is involved in just about everything we do, because there's so many people that live here in my district that are active duty, and we train National Guardsmen from all over the state and from all over the South, really. So this community has the highest income from military presence of any fort or post in Georgia. Everything here is Fort Stewart, about 70% connectivity between the citizenry. So we're all shocked, we're heartbroken, and we're hurt because of the great cooperation between this district and Fort Stewart. And we just changed command. So this is a new commanding general and a new garrison commander, but they hit the ground running. And I'm sure as smooth as it went, there were just no gaps in what needs to be done out there. And we're grateful to know that our soldiers are protected like that. Those who protect us, that we care so much about, they're first in battle. My people have been deployed so much since the Iraqi war. There's so many times, and they do it. And to come home after surviving the terrors of war, to come home and be shot, not just shot, but by a fellow soldier, disheartening, is really an understatement.
Yeah, they're to protect each other. And the fact that this is played out as law enforcement is describing it this way is heartbreaking. Representative Williams, thank you so much for joining us. We do appreciate your perspective as you represent the area there that Fort Stewart is on. Ty Sidgley is back with us, retired U.S. Army Brigadier General. And, General, even before we found out the identity of the suspected shooter here, we were asking questions about if it might be an active duty soldier, service member, because so often it is. When you look back at these shootings on military installations, it is almost always.
Allegedly, the guy has been identified. At least this is what's being shared. I say take this with a grain of salt. Wait, what the hell? Hold on, y'all. Allegedly, he has been identified. This is very interesting. This is the guy right here. Cornelius Cementerio Radford. Cornelius Cementerio Radford. He was booked earlier in May for a DUI. Cornelius Radford. Now, of course, in about 2 minutes, we're supposed to have a press conference. So we'll see if what they're saying here is 100%.
That's probably
right.
they're getting everything set up that's typical for a press conference. And Heather, what do you see from your end over there?
Crazy.
Looking through social media, and I just want to reiterate
Crazy.
the statement that Georgia Governor Brian Kemp put out a couple of hours ago, just saying as we remain in close contact with law enforcement on the ground, he says, Marty and the girls and I are saddened by today's tragedy at Fort Stewart. We're keeping the victims, their families, and all those who answer the call to serve in our hearts and prayers. And we ask that Georgians everywhere do the same. And I think everyone
I'll be
who
right
hears this
back
story
in
about what
flash.
unfolded on
We're
a
keeping an eye
military
on
base
this.
this morning, just before 11 o'clock this morning, our hearts go out to those soldiers.
Press
Let's go
conference
live now
happening
to
very
Fort Stewart
soon.
for the update from the base commander.
Last name is Tomko, Tomko, and I'm the spokesperson for the 3rd Infantry Division. Today we're here to discuss the incident that took place earlier today on the north side of Fort Stewart installation at the 2nd Armored Brigade Combat Team footprint. And just
We interrupt this program for an 11 Alive News special report.
We are following breaking news out of Fort Stewart, Georgia. I'm Cheryl Preheim.
And I'm Jennifer Bellamy. In just a moment, we are expecting to hear from the base commander, Brigadier General John Lubis. This after 5 soldiers were injured in a shooting on a base, Fort Stewart, earlier today.
Law enforcement sources tell CNN that the suspected shooter is a 28-year-old U.S. Army sergeant. The shooting at Fort Stewart happened.
victims until the next
Why would they
written
do that?
notification has been complete. We will not speculate as to any intentions, motives, or backstories, given that this is an ongoing investigation. When you ask your questions, we ask that you please give your name and the affiliation in case we need to do a follow-up. And it's a little hard to hear, so please speak up so that General Lubis can hear you and that you can hear him. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. I will now turn it over to General Lubis.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for joining us. This morning, shortly before 11 o'clock, an active duty soldier assigned to Fort Stewart, Georgia, shot and wounded 5 of his fellow soldiers here on Fort Stewart. Thankfully, all are in stable condition and all are expected to recover. The alleged shooter is in custody. We have reestablished security. I have lifted all lockdown measures on Fort Stewart, and there is currently no threat to the local community. I'd like to recognize and thank our Army law enforcement and medical personnel and our partners from local, state, and federal law enforcement and emergency services for their quick response and support. I would also like to thank the brave soldiers who immediately intervened and subdued the shooter. These soldiers, without a doubt, prevented further casualties. Our wounded soldiers were initially evacuated to Wynn Army Community Hospital right here on Fort Stewart. All arrived in stable condition, and 3 of the 5 required surgical intervention. 2 have been transported to Memorial Hospital in Savannah, Georgia for additional care. We have identified the alleged shooter as Sergeant Cornelius Radford, an automated logistics sergeant assigned to 2nd Brigade Combat Team. Sergeant Radford has not previously deployed to combat. Sergeant Radford has been interviewed by the Army Criminal Investigation Division and is currently in pretrial confinement, awaiting a charging decision by the Office of the Special Trial Counsel. Right now, our primary focus is first on caring for our injured soldiers and their families, and also supporting the soldiers of the Spartan Brigade. All of the families of the victims have been notified, and we're wrapping our arms around them and ensuring we provide them all the support that we can. Before I take questions, I want to remind you that this is an ongoing investigation and we're still gathering questions. And ladies and gentlemen, I'll now take your questions.
General Lewis will be in News. Can you give us what unit he was assigned to and how long he served in the Army? If you didn't mention it.
Yeah, he is assigned to one of our sustainment units here in 2nd Brigade Combat Team at Fort Stewart. And I will have to confirm how long he served with us. Yes, sir.
Corresponding with the Associated Press, as best you can, knowing it's so early, can you walk us through where this happened, what happened in the shooting, and were the victims subordinates of the sergeants, or were they people over him in rank?
Yeah, right now it's premature, and we're gathering a lot of the information. What we know is this soldier, the shooting occurred at the soldier's place of work. It did involve his coworkers. We're still not certain about the motivations, but again, he's been interviewed by Army investigators, and we believe we'll gain more information here shortly. Yes, ma'am. No, ma'am. We don't have any reason to believe it had anything to do with a training event. Other than that, I can't state the motivations for this soldier.
We've heard that the shooter
Yes, sir.
may have been from Jacksonville, Florida. Are you able to confirm that? We also heard that he may be been arrested for DUI recently.
Yeah, at this point, I can't confirm where he's from. We can follow up on that. I do believe he was arrested locally for a DUI that was unknown to his chain of command until the event occurred, and we started looking into the law enforcement databases.
Robin, also the current, can you tell us whether or not that was a military weapon or whether this is a personal weapon that's personal?
Yes, ma'am. I can confirm it was not a military weapon, and we believe it was a personal handgun. Yes, sir. Yeah, I'm very confident in this installation. We've got a great partnership with local law enforcement. As you can see here at our gates, we have armed guards in protective equipment. This one's a bit difficult, and we're going to have to determine how he was able to get a handgun to his place of duty.
LECOA News for Jack, has the suspect had any prior disciplinary or behavioral issues on base?
No, ma'am, not that we're aware of. But again, it's early in the investigation, but not that I'm currently aware of. I don't have the details on that, but I know that his soldiers in the area that witnessed the shooting immediately and without hesitation tackled the soldier, subdued him, that allowed law enforcement to then take him into custody.
And we've got time for one more question.
I know that you can't speak to the motivation, but if this turns out to be some situation where somebody had extremist beliefs or maybe classified as a terrorist attack, I mean, how does that change the basis of response and the basis of investigation?
Yeah, currently we have no reason to believe any of that is the case. However, we continuously assess the threat environment, both in the immediate area and across our Army and DoD installations, and we will address the threat level accordingly. Yes, sir. He was a sergeant. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your questions. And again, thanks to the local responders and the local community for their help. Thanks and have a great afternoon.
Thank you, sir.
Hey, I'm going to give you the proper spelling. I'm going to give you the spelling of the assailant. The first name is Cornelius. It's spelled Quornelus.
Well, not a whole lot of stuff. A whole lot of nothing.
Last name is Radford. 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 He's 28 years old.
And there was some mention he was second logistics. I didn't get all of that.
Yeah, so he is a automated logistics sergeant, a 92 Alpha with 2nd Armored Brigade Combat Team. Hey, I'm going to come off the podium now, but if you guys have additional questions that I can help facilitate stuff, we have a whole team of public affairs back here that's here to help. Could I ask you to just repeat your
Okay. So
Yes, it's Lieutenant Colonel.
not a whole lot. Not a whole lot, but enough to get something, right? He had his own personal his own personal sidearm, basically. And then of course he did what he did. And now we have the identity of who this assailant is. 28-year-old Cornelius Radford. Let me get that photo up here. Where did that go? Here it is. 28-year-old Cornelius Radford. Of course, everything's still ongoing. It's still brand new. They're still trying to find out exactly why he did what he did. And it's Cornelius with a Q. Okay. So Cornelius, I don't even know how to say it, but it's Cornelius with a Q. Okay. And so apparently one thing is for sure, all 5 are going to make it, which is great news. Just so you know, all 5 people that were hit are going to make it. That's fantastic news. All right. We still don't know why this dude did what he did, but hopefully we find out soon why he did what he did. Okay. This is it's crazy. This whole story is absolutely crazy. Yeah, it sounds like maybe he just crashed out for no reason. He just literally had, maybe he just, I don't know. Maybe it's some sort of thing that happened at work that he didn't, you know what I mean? Like maybe he butt heads with somebody at work and that triggered him. I don't know. Something's weird, right? But what happened here is very, very tragic. And again, we got to figure out how to control these weapons out here, y'all. Okay. And I don't know. Could it be he was under the influence? We don't know. We do not know. But we're going to find out soon enough. We're definitely going to find out soon enough. All right. But unfortunately, guys, I gotta hop off the show here. But again, hopefully we find out some more information here very, very soon. This is a very tragic situation. But thank God everyone is going to get through, right? Everyone's going to make it through this situation. But of course, when we get more information about this, we'll talk about it. Okay. Jason, thank you so much for the super sticker. I really do appreciate it. Thank you so very, very much. I appreciate that. Thank you. Okay. And thank you all for just tuning in with me. Okay. I really appreciate it. Didn't know we were, you know how it is when we do these breaking stories, you don't know how long it's going to be and all that stuff. So I try to stay as long as I could for you guys. So we got through it. We're there. That's also great news. But of course, justice is coming for this Cornelius character. And hopefully they give us more information on why he did what he did. Okay. But that is the show. When we get some more information, I'll let you guys know. Okay. Of course. But please do me a favor. All right. Please do me a favor. Hit that like button down below before you head out. Hit that reaction button if you're watching on other platforms. That'd be greatly, greatly appreciated. Okay. If you are watching on those other platforms like Facebook, X/Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Rumble, Twitch, Kick, make sure you hit that follow button on all those platforms. Subscribe over there as well. Don't forget to subscribe here on my YouTube. Go to my second channel, The Pascal Show Clips, and my third channel, Pascal Raw, and subscribe to those channels as well. That'd be greatly appreciated. Hit that notification bell and set it to all so you know whenever I go live, whenever I upload. Hit that join button down below, become a member, check out my Patreon, and of course, check out PascalMerch.com. Well, guys, it's time to get going, but I'll be talking to you guys very, very soon, okay? There's a lot to talk about. There's a lot to cover. So we'll be back in a little bit, okay? We'll talk soon. Be good to yourselves. Be good to one another. This is The Pascal Show. Bye.